Why has Triple H been so successful? Why is Triple H running WWE better than Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard on Monday and Friday night? Long-term booking.
What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining me on Tuesday night. It is Tuesday Night Titans, episode number 46 for your Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. I am your host, JD from New York, as always, coming to you live tonight with my co-host and good, close personal friend, Mr. Ango of the Ango Show. I want you guys to welcome him tonight to Tuesday Night Titans. Brother, what is going on?
You know, I'm alive. I'm well. Look, I appreciate you having me here. I know we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, so I think we should just kick things off, right?
Yeah, we're gonna get right into it. The floor is yours, man. I know a lot of people, they love what happens here on Tuesday night. They know the situation that happened a couple of weeks ago. Ango was one of the first people that I actually hit up to sit with me on Tuesday because not only do I appreciate his upfront honesty, I felt like just with what happened last year, we did the WrestleMania Roundtable. It was Jesse, it was you, it was me, and my guy BC Amplified. A lot of people really loved that roundtable and the discussion that came out of that. In fact, you know, low-key, I actually go back and just get a glimpse of that every now and then because I really enjoyed what we created then. It was literally just on a couple of days' notice. So you were one of the first people that I hit up, and I remember you were doing the wrestling thing way back when, and then you went away for a little bit, and then you just kind of recreated yourself, and you just kind of took off, and you're almost at 80,000 subscribers. I mean, you're fucking killing it, man. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you know, the way I look at it is if you search Ango and you can't find me, I'm not doing a good enough job. So listen, I'm all about the grind. I'm all about putting in the work, and that's something I plan on doing. So I'm on every platform, but if you can't find me, I got to keep working harder.
And you're on YouTube and obviously
Twitter, TikTok, Instagram.
Well, Twitter less nowadays because it's, you know, it's just it's garbage over there.
Yeah, it really is.
Anyway, guys, we're going to get into the wrestling news. We have a lot to go over. I know I have a couple of things that I have not personally spoke on that I really want to really talk about tonight. And a lot of it has to do with AEW. And I have been very vocal about the product lately. And we're going to get into what Tony Khan said at the NFL Draft, the neck brace situation, the Swerve situation, the handling of Swerve. Ango and I are going to go over the WWE Draft as well. I got everything detailed, draft picks from both Friday and Monday. We're going to go over the draft and see how everything stacks up now with the rosters going to be locked on Monday. So we got a lot to get into. So make sure you guys sit tight. Follow us on social at JD from NY206. Ango Social is on the screen there. Make sure you go follow him on X as well. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell for notifications. Go find Ango on YouTube as well. And all that good shit. And please make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. I would really appreciate at least 1,000 likes on tonight's Tuesday Night Titans episode number 46. As tradition, Ango, I will leave it up to you, brother. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, obviously there's a lot of craziness in pro wrestling this year, and I think that's the best way to start because the last time we did talk was the WrestleMania 39 roundtable, and it seems like wrestling has evolved so quickly, stories every single day. And to really have a better understanding of what you're thinking, I want to know how you feel about the climate of the professional wrestling industry this year. I'm not talking about the business. I'm not talking about ratings or, you know, attendance or anything like that. Just WWE, AEW, TNA. Like, what is your overall thoughts on the industry today? And how do you see it compared to last year?
Well, the way that I look at it, is obviously with what I do as far as content creation. And I am very analytical when it comes to my own channel and my own podcast and the money that I bring in via AdSense on Google, a lot of it, honestly, I've already trumped what I did last year. So I know wrestling's in a good space just based off that, because and I usually hit you up too. I'm like, bro, what the fuck's going on with the algorithm? Videos aren't being pushed out. Views are down. What's going on? Is YouTube broken? I can tell you right now, and I know everybody else is up too because I'm feeling it. The amount of uptick in the content so far through the first 4 months has been tremendous. So I know wrestling's in a good place just based off that. As far as what I see on television, I haven't been more pleased with WWE and the way that they handle things. And a lot of that has to do with the old administration being gone. And I'm not afraid to admit that. I've been calling for this for years, since the early days of Black and Gold. Triple H is the guy. Trust in Triple H. He's not perfect. He doesn't book a perfect show at all, and he makes his mistakes. But I think everybody watching the show knows that the company creatively is in a better place than it was 12 months ago. AEW, I don't know. I'm very questionable on AEW. I'm in this gray zone with AEW. Last year, I thought it was one of the worst times in their 5 years. I thought the interest was very low. Starting this year, I thought they started the year off on the right foot. Tony Khan brings in some big free agents. And I said back in March, I don't know what you thought about it, that the coming out of Revolution, those first 3 Dynamites after Revolution were some of the best shows that they've ever produced. Everything was focused. Everything made sense. Everything mattered. Everything belonged there. They were doing things that they weren't doing previously. Now, all of a sudden, they're back in this lull, and it's almost like they forgot how to book a wrestling show. So, with WWE, it's a little bit more consistent. With AEW, it's a little bit more hot and cold. I just wish they get back on the same page. But to answer your question in a generalized sense, I honestly think that through the first 4 months, a lot of it has to do with what we've seen coming out of WWE and AEW. We're in a much better place than we were in the first 4 months than all last year, in my honest opinion.
It's amazing you've said that, because I actually agree with you. Especially going into AEW last year, one of the big things, JD, that I've noticed was when Tony Khan and AEW started touting Restore the Feeling.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that they probably agree with us here. I'm going to assume that they thought 2023 was not a hot year. And it's very interesting because they obviously had the All In pay-per-view, which was a fascinating success story for them. But, as time goes on, what I'm actually starting to realize, and I'm sure when we get into these crazy topics, we're going to see a lot of parallels between them. But when I watched the WWE era under the old regime, some really good stories, some good matches here and there, but a lot of inconsistency.
Yes.
And now I'm starting to realize that WWE has completely transformed. Not every episode is a massive hit where the crowd is going crazy in these massive matches, but they have done something, and I think that starts with their vision, which was creating compelling long-term storytelling. And not just doing it for the big feuds, but also doing it for the people in the mid-card. And now I'm starting to watch AEW, and I'm like, it's starting to remind me of that old regime where things were, inconsistent. A really, really good program at the top, and then everything else kind of lost its purpose. But it's actually really crazy because going into 2024, Revolution, and even since then, and maybe we'll disagree on this, but I feel like the last few weeks of television has a lot of good content. I think the big problem with them is essentially what they've been doing outside of the TV show. And I think what's happening outside of the television show has actually become the problem. I think the outside noise is far louder than the quality content that they're putting out. And I think people don't even notice that because they're so focused on all of this backstage talk or these things that are happening, on social media and, NFL Network or whatever. So I feel like it's just so crazy to see how the roles have reversed, because AEW's honeymoon phase lasted for a long time. And believe it or not, I wasn't the biggest fan of NXT Black and Gold in the later years. Bloated rosters, not a lot of things happening in the mid-card that personally I enjoyed. So watching Triple H take over this regime and essentially put over, stacking up their mid-card, a lot more of a balance between wrestling and entertainment. Obviously, Kevin Dunn is gone, probably the greatest thing that's ever happened, in terms of the presentation for the company. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see how this year ends. And the reason why I asked you, not to talk about ratings or attendance is because I think so many people get lost in their arguments with attendance and merchandise sales. And yeah, I know it matters, but as a fan of pro wrestling, I think what really matters is, are you enjoying what you watch? And me and you both kind of see eye to eye that AEW isn't consistently fulfilling us, whereas WWE is. Now, for those who are new to me, I just want to make it pretty clear. I micro-analyze things segment by segment. So a show could have a lot more positives than bads. I'm going to talk about both of those, but it's definitely a crazy thing, especially being a full-time content creator now, 3 years. I would have never guessed this in a million years. It just seems like the business is hot. People are getting paid. A lot of fans are, they have their options, and now it's a good thing for the industry, but I want more. And maybe that's me being selfish and greedy and stuff, but I want more. And I don't think that's too much to ask for.
No, it's not too much to ask for. And you mentioned long-term vision, long-term booking. I've said this, and you made correlations to what AEW is doing now, that it reminds you of what the previous WWE administration was doing with a lot of inconsistencies. I have not shied away from saying that Tony Khan is slowly becoming what he hates. And I don't mean that in a Vince McMahon, Titan Tower sexual allegations generalization, but I feel like Tony Khan is booking for Tony Khan and only Tony Khan, and he's not booking for the fans, no matter how much he wants to say that he loves the fans and he does it for the fans and he loves pro wrestling. No, Tony Khan loves Tony Khan, and Tony Khan wants what Tony Khan wants on the show. And you start to see that more and more and more, and those inconsistencies, they start to mount up more and more and more and more. And like you said, as a content creator, we watch this shit differently. I don't watch it as a fan anymore. I watch it as an analyst. I watch it as, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, why is this happening? And why wasn't this said? And why wasn't this promoted? Like, my whole mindset goes into it differently. A lot of people don't really understand that. And then they want to jump on the, Ango's a hater or JD's a hater train. No, I'm not a hater. I just want my intelligence to not be insulted. And I feel like Tony Khan is honestly taking us for granted now, which this week really set me off. The Jack Perry and CM Punk thing set me off. Going into the reasons why they did it and the explanation behind it set me off even more. And him coming out and doing the angle that he did on Wednesday with the lack of focus on Swerve just threw me over the top. Like, this is not the AEW that we remember 5 years ago. The AEW that we got from that debut show when Cody Rhodes was there, that would have never happened under the mindful and watchful eye of Cody Rhodes. It would have never happened. And I feel like, and a lot of people feel this way, as soon as he departed to WWE, a lot of that went out the window. And Tony Khan took the reins and he took control. And he has basically said, no, it's my show now. I'm running the entire thing. And that's where I always say he needs help. He's got so much on his plate. He should hire a fucking writer. He should hire, a writing team. He should hire people to do the little tasks where he doesn't have to sit and, come up with storylines. And those inconsistencies are going to be just very blatant more and more every week. He should be the one that finalizes everything while everybody else does the fucking the dirty work. And I don't really understand why we're in the situation we're in. And I'm sure we're going to dive into it, because the first thing that I got on the plate is the entire Swerve situation. And this is something that really pissed me off coming out of Wednesday's show. So Swerve was on the show Wednesday. He didn't get any celebration. He didn't get no mic time. He got a match with Kyle Fletcher. Now, I don't know what you thought about it. What did you think immediately when Dynamite started and we saw the Elite get out of an Uber, and then we see Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, and Chuck Taylor? First thing to start the show, I'm like, well, where's the world heavyweight champion that legitimately just made history on Sunday night? What did you think that, AEW going into Wednesday's show didn't immediately feature their world champion?
So it's an interesting question, because with Swerve, to kind of give a backstory, when Swerve came into the company, that was my guy. Like, hey, this guy shouldn't be tag teaming with Keith Lee. Like, this guy is a world champion in my eyes. Now, it obviously took some time, but we finally got it. And obviously in pro wrestling, everybody knows that the chase is usually better than what comes after. And I hate to compare it to WWE, but when I looked at Cody finish the story, and then next week he shows up and he's in a segment with The Rock, and then he's on SmackDown as well. He's on both shows, and he's the WWE champion, right? I'm looking at Swerve and I'm trying to understand, why isn't he the guy? Why isn't he the guy? Now, the reason why I say this, they do the presentation with, the Elite coming out of the Uber, and I get it. That's a very big story for them. But I want to know, forget about the match with Kyle Fletcher. I want to know why Swerve isn't the one getting the red carpet treatment. Why isn't he having an Uber? Why isn't he pulling up in a very expensive car? Because years ago, AEW said, when you win the championship, when you're winning these big matches, you're getting paid a lot of money. Why doesn't Swerve come out in the expensive car? Why isn't he pulling up with fans trying to get his autograph? To me, that's how I look at Swerve. I'm thinking this guy creates a very big demand from fans. People love him. That's how I would have done it. I would have put the attention on him, and then immediately after that, then do the Elite. And what's actually really crazy, because I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I want to see Swerve mix it up with the Elite. And I felt like last week that was their big miss, because they jumped into a match with Kyle Fletcher. That was it.
Yeah, and I want you to keep that mindset about Swerve and the Elite, because I do think that they may, if they're smart, may be setting something up for Double or Nothing. So now Swerve, he showed up on Saturday after not doing much of anything on Wednesday. There was nothing promoted about Swerve going into Saturday's Collision. He just had a match with Kyle Fletcher and then said basically goodbye. He was not featured on the entire show on Wednesday night after that match. Swerve talked about Dynasty on Saturday night and Willow's big win for the TBS title. Adam Cole standing again by the grace of God, and Adam Copeland getting misted in the face by the House of Black. Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay tore the house down, and the return of Jack Perry. He said Jack Perry struck Tony Khan, a man who put all his faith in me. He said the EVPs gave him a pile driver, and now he's in a neck brace, and there's no telling when we'll see Tony Khan healthy again. He says he's done a lot of wrong in the past, but something about the 4 elite athletes beating up a non-fighter, that's a bitch move to me, Swerve said. So I'll stop there. You mentioned that you wanted to see them potentially do something with Swerve in the Elite. I think that line, that's a bitch move to me, maybe setting up something with Swerve and the Elite running the show on Wednesday, because Tony Khan's now running it remote. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think, and I don't know if this is the case or where they're going creatively, but they may be setting up Jack Perry versus Swerve Strickland at Double or Nothing. I don't know how much of that you thought about or if you pieced that together coming out of Saturday. But how do you feel about that potentially being the direction that they're going into Vegas?
So this is my issue with AEW. Swerve's promo on Collision, and I'm a guy, I don't need wrestlers to have the most crazy character, but I look at Swerve and I'm listening to his promo, especially when he talks about his daughters. I'm thinking, what a beautiful promo. More human side to a superstar, right? And then he brings up the Elite thing, and I'm like, okay, this is good, right? And the crowd obviously was chanting alongside him. But I think a lot of people are forgetting, when all of those guys came out at the end of Dynamite, it was a lot of the guys on the lower mid-card that showed up for Tony Khan. Why wasn't their world champion there? Their world champion, who's been awarded this opportunity to win the world championship, who's coming out on Saturday talking about, obviously how he has that respect for Tony Khan, right? Why wasn't he there to check on Tony Khan? But instead, AEW, the last shot that they had on that Dynamite was Shad Khan and his reaction to his son. Shad Khan and Tony Khan are not regular TV. They're not on TV regularly, right? Shad Khan, I don't think, has ever been on TV. So I'm looking at Dante Martin and a whole bunch of other guys, Evil Uno, and all these guys that are baby faces or whatever. And I'm thinking, why isn't Swerve there? Which, by the way, if you're trying to set up the Elite versus Swerve Strickland, if you're doing a power struggle, a civil war storyline in AEW, I want to know why Swerve, the world champion, is not there to check on the guy who made his dream a reality. So I listened to this promo on Saturday, and I love the promo, and I love the fact that he brings up the Elite. But I cannot stand how they did this, because let's just be frank, Dynamite is the primary show for AEW, not Collision. People are forgetting that. Dynamite is the show. That is the A show. That is the one that people are paying attention most to. So I'm scratching my head, because I think AEW doesn't have its priorities straight. And I love the idea of Jack Perry versus Swerve. I love the idea of Swerve going up against the Elite. But now it just seems like it was the missed opportunity because they could have done it Wednesday. And that way, when he gets to his promo on Saturday, it would have been a lot more effective in potentially starting the new storyline.
That's a very good point. Everything that you said there, most of it I uttered on Wednesday. And I did not even think about Swerve being out there on Wednesday because I was thinking about his promo on Saturday. I'm like, all right, maybe they're doing Jack Perry and Swerve Strickland. But then I didn't even realize and go back to Wednesday, Swerve wasn't out there. So that's a great point that I'm going to obviously keep an eye on. That is if they go in that direction. And yes, they don't have their priorities. They don't have their priorities straight. I don't even think that angle was planned coming out of Dynasty, honestly. I thought that plan, the ending angle, was booked the morning of or the afternoon of on Wednesday. I don't think that was a plan. It wasn't promoted. There wasn't anything said about Jack Perry meeting Tony Khan in the ring. Nothing. There was nothing said about anything that happened at the end of that show. It was merely done as a publicity stunt because the NFL draft was legitimately happening the next day. And I'll always say, if they need to do something for the sake of desperation, then it's not really AEW in this great creative bubble, honestly. It's just them doing something because they know that they're suffering somewhere in the ratings or suffering as far as interest for the show. It's not planned. And I feel coming out of Wednesday that entire situation was not a planned storyline or angle. And it was merely done for, the NFL draft. But Jack Perry and Swerve could be the move. So he said the most important thing that happened on Dynasty is his win over Samoa Joe. He became the AEW World Champion. He said a pet peeve of his is when people walk around saying they're the best in the world because that person is the one who holds the AEW World Championship. He said he made some sacrifices. He said the night he won the title, his daughter said she was proud of him. And she said she didn't feel she knew him. He said his kids mean the world to him and he's missed so many big events in their life, in her life. He said he has to blaze a trail as AEW champion to prove it was all worth it. He said AEW's put people in front of him, and he's knocked them all down. And then he says he's in a giving mood, and we go right back to the same old shit from AEW, and we get an open challenge from Claudio. Claudio Castagnoli comes out, and he accepts the open challenge from Swerve Strickland, which, I wouldn't have a fucking problem with that if AEW didn't have every other championship contested under an open challenge. For the entire international championship title reign of Orange Cassidy, everything was an open challenge. Before Christian held the TBS championship, it was an open challenge. Now it's on Adam Copeland, and he's doing the Cope Open. I mean, why do we have the world champion having an open challenge when your world champion should be above all in the company? He's the ace. He's the face. Why are you making him feel like everybody else lower than him? Why are you making your biggest prize feel like every other worthless title that you have in the company? And then people don't understand why I'm upset about this. Ango, perception, optics are everything. And they made Swerve and the championship feel less than on Wednesday going into Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, perception is reality. Everything that you see on TV and social media, that's the perception. And the big thing I think here is that you have to look at what AEW does really well and then look at what they need to improve on. And one of the big things is they are really good at putting on good matches. Like, they are producing some great matches every week. But the problem is you got to look at the purpose of it. And that's my gripe, right? You want to do an open challenge with Claudio? Cool, do an open challenge. The problem is when you're doing all of these open challenges, I'm looking for one thing. And I remember specifically talking about this years and years ago, and I can't remember the exact episode, but it was WWE Raw, Seth Rollins versus Neville. And I look back at this as an example of a really good chance for WWE to create a new star. Neville almost beats Seth Rollins. He loses. And I never saw WWE follow up with Neville again. And I look at AEW doing these open challenges and I'm thinking, okay, you want to do open challenge, that's cool, but what's the follow-up for the person that loses? And that's my issue. I'm looking at the purpose of it. I don't see the purpose of it. So when I see him wrestle Claudio, I'm like, oh, that's cool, good match, whatever, it's a fine match. But what happens to Claudio after the fact? Well, history has told me with all of these open challenges that they've done, the purpose is just to simply have the match, which I wouldn't necessarily care if AEW didn't tell me, hey, power rankings are coming back. Then they come back and sure enough, where are they? Why aren't they updated? Why isn't the show being booked based on those rankings? Like, it's kind of hard, man. It's kind of hard to watch this and care because I want to, but they're not telling me to care. They're just basically saying, here's this match and that's it.
No,
and that's a really big problem.
It's Tony Khan playing with his toys on a Saturday night. That's all it is. You know, they could have easily said, you know what? We're not going to have Swerve wrestle. What the fuck does he need to wrestle for? Everybody should be wrestling for the right to wrestle him. The fuck is he wrestling for? Then everybody's like, oh, he's a fighting champion. That's okay. Is Cody not going to be a fighting champion? Does that mean I got to see Cody wrestle 2 times in the same week after he beat Roman Reigns? Why waste an appearance? Why risk an injury? Why didn't we do a number 1 contendership with Claudio and whoever the fuck else wants to wrestle for the World Championship? You know what I'm thinking? You know, if they're going to announce his opponent for Double or Nothing on Wednesday, why don't they just have anybody randomly just come out of the fucking locker room? Because everybody loves an open challenge. Claudio got a match on Saturday night. Who's stopping anybody else from saying, hey, Swerve, I want a championship match. Let's wrestle in Vegas. The optics of it are just so fucking stupid. And then nobody says anything. If there was no open challenges, then I wouldn't mind it so much and I wouldn't critique it so much. But the fact that you got him doing the same thing everybody else is doing, it makes him feel less than. And we're not in the business to make Swerve, who we took from nothing to make into the biggest face in the company right now. I don't really understand the logistics of that. You already ruined his first week as champion in my eyes. And then you want to hide the bullshit behind, oh yeah, we didn't have a celebration. We didn't have him cut a promo because we're saving his promo for the most eyes possible in front of Collision as the lead-in from the Celtics and Heat game. Now, that rating, I think the top of the hour did 1.3 million people. It's great. So I don't give a fuck about that. I don't give a shit about the ratings. You know where the ratings were when Swerve wrestled Claudio? 460,000. How many of those people maintained interest to go watch him and go out of their way and watch him in the main event? Not one single person. You know who was there, though? The AEW loyalists who are there every fucking Saturday. They don't give a shit. So what was the big deal? And like you said, I said this on Wednesday, exactly what you said. If it doesn't happen on Dynamite, Dynamite is your biggest show. It is your A show. I don't give a shit how many people are leading in on Saturday night. Collision is your B show. Rampage is worthless. So what are you doing putting him on a Saturday night when Dynamite is basically the centralized hub of why everything exists in AEW? If it doesn't happen on Dynamite, I don't give a shit. If it doesn't happen on Dynamite, in my eyes, it might as well have not happened, to be quite honest with you. That's your largest audience. Why was nothing announced? Why was nothing stated there? That's the problem I have. And they don't see that. They don't take accountability for it.
Let me ask you, what did you say the lead-in number was? 1.3?
1.35 million people at the top, as soon as that game ended.
I don't really care to talk about ratings because, honestly, the way they're calculated, there's a lot of flaws with it. But let's just say that number is incredibly accurate. Let's just say 1.3 million people watched it, just for the idea of a figure being out there. Why waste that opportunity, again, for an open challenge? Why not use all of that opportunity to kick off this massive storyline going into Double or Nothing? That's the question. Why not? Like, this is where I have an issue with pro wrestling. It's not just an AEW thing or a WWE thing, but if you have an opportunity where eyes are on you, why are you letting that small little opportunity slip by when, let's say it is Jack Perry and the Elite? Why not have Swerve do the open challenge while there's 1.3 million people tuning in or whatever it is? Why not have the Elite attack Swerve because of that bitch-ass remark that he made in his promo, right? Like, why not use that time that you have? And I think this is a big thing. You have 2 hours of live television. Allocate your time wisely. Every second matters. You do the match, you let them go for 10, 15 minutes, but what's next? You know, why is Swerve going to go on to Dynamite with no build going into Double or Nothing? Like, he's going to go on Dynamite this week, and we're going to find out who his opponent is. Why not put that same passion and level of storytelling that you did for Hangman and Swerve? Why not use that way of thinking for Swerve's next feud? And that's the question. And it seems to me that every time I ask this question about AEW, I can never really get an answer. So if you could answer it, JD, I'd love to hear it. But I just don't understand.
I can't answer it. I've tried to answer it week after week after week, and I don't know why. The only thing I can come up with is Tony has his priorities all fucked up, which we've already discussed and talked about. His priorities are not where they need to be. And I mentioned Would he have treated Jon Moxley as the world champion like that? Would he have treated CM Punk like that as the world champion when he was the world champion for as little as he was? Would he have treated Kenny Omega as the world champion like that? Chris Jericho? Did he treat MJF that way? Now, MJF felt like the biggest part of the show. Even Hangman felt like the biggest part of the show when he won the world championship from Kenny Omega, which some people herald as the greatest AEW storyline of all time next to CM Punk and MJF. I don't know why we got off on the wrong foot so quickly and so recklessly with this situation. And then they want to fucking hide it behind, oh, we were waiting and it was a plan. No, motherfucker, it wasn't a plan because nothing was said on Wednesday. And then we come to social media on Thursday and then it's announced on social media that Swerve is going to be cutting a promo. So why the fuck wasn't it mentioned on Wednesday? I don't really understand it. No, it was mentioned on social media, and you played it off as a plan because you saw all the backlash that you got for your poor structure and creative on Wednesday night. Oh, everybody's upset that we didn't feature Swerve. Let's put out a statement saying that he's going to be on Saturday's Collision right at the top, and then we'll use the basketball game as an excuse because we want the most eyes on Swerve. No, you didn't. If you wanted the most eyes on Swerve, you would have put him at the top of the fucking hour on Dynamite. I don't give a shit what the ratings were. None of it makes sense to me. I don't get it. I really don't understand it. And I'm the mark. I'm the negative one. Just do the right thing.
JD, let me ask you. Because last week you were upset. You were upset about the Elite ending the show. And you were upset about Tony Khan. I seen your review with Jesse, and you were upset about Tony Khan being on the show. And you're upset about the Elite being, the final segment, and you were upset about Jon Moxley versus Powerhouse Hobbs. And I did actually agree that I think most of those were valid points. But the thing that I kind of noticed was when you were talking about it, you were like, Tony Khan's not a TV figure. Like, he's not on TV. Why is he taking up this TV time? Would that have changed your mind if Swerve was involved in that main event segment? Would you have felt like they did the right job with Swerve if that was the case?
Yes, because at that point it would have came off as if they had a plan. Like I'm like I didn't mind the closing angle on Wednesday. No. I don't really care to see Tony Khan as a figure weekly on television. I think Tony Khan is one of the what's a good word to describe Tony Khan? I mean, he's just weird. Like he's just a bizarre human being. Like he's just uncomfortable on television. He's awkward is a good word. He's an awkward figure. We don't need that. He's not a powerful person. Like he's not like a Vince or a Bischoff or a William Regal in that role. Like I don't want to look at awkward Tony Khan flopping around, not knowing how to take a bump, can't cut a promo, can't discern the level of his voice, when he should raise his voice, when he shouldn't raise his voice. I don't want to see any of that. But I did appreciate the fact that they tried. They tried with the angle. They lived kayfabe. He had the fucking neck brace on going into the draft. I mean, we'll get to that part in a little bit, but I appreciate that they took a risk. Was it planned? I don't think so. I thought they did it merely as a publicity stunt, and now they're going to turn it into something, because that's the way AEW operates. They do, and then they plan. They don't plan and then execute. That's just what they do. But I did appreciate that they took a risk. And I've said this, Angle, for weeks on my end. What AEW needs is long-term storytelling. We get matches. I mean, they could fucking shit out match, a great match. I mean, they could sleep their way through great matches. I mean, with that roster, I don't see how you can't. But the thing that they need something that's going to take them to become weekly episodic television. The way AEW exists now, it's not weekly episodic television. It's just a fucking booker and a mark who's making dream matches because he paid for all these fancy wrestlers and he's got them on Dynamite and Collision. They need something like the Bloodline. They need something like Cody finishing his story. Whatever the fuck that may be, I don't know if this is going to be that. I don't know if it's going to result in that. I don't know where the interest is going to be, but at least it's a start. We'll find out on Wednesday what their plans are, but at least they got the overall, hey, man, this is what we need to do down. Now they have to execute. I just don't trust them to execute.
I don't know if I agree with you entirely when you say that this wasn't planned out. And I understand where you're coming from, but I think Tony Khan, at the very least, knew when they were doing the CM Punk footage, that was their plan. I genuinely believe they knew at some point they are going to write off Tony Khan and do the pile driver angle. But at the same time, too, I think AEW is in a very tricky spot, and I don't see a lot of people talking about this, but for all intents and matters, I think the Devil storyline was a huge bust. And believe it or not, I actually liked it, by the way. I liked it. But in terms of what it did for the company, I don't think it did. I don't think that storyline got them in the right direction. When Samoa Joe became champion, I was like, okay, now this company is starting to restore the feeling. 2021 AEW, it's starting to feel that way. They bring in Kenny and the Elite, and they're doing all these things. This has an opportunity to be the big story for AEW. But I am a little bit apprehensive about it because I think they had the plan of, hey, Tony Khan's going to get hit with the Meltzer driver. I don't think they saw further than that. I think they kind of knew, hey, we're going to show the footage. This is going to build up to Jack Perry's return. This is going to be the new thing that they do on TV. Tony Khan's going to be out of TV, and this is going to be their big storyline. The problem for AEW is when you're trying to be very aggressive with a massive storyline like this, you got to start looking at how can this storyline or this thing that's taking place on TV, how can it benefit other people coming up on the card? And the reality is when I look at Swerve as a champion, who I'm so happy about being a champion, and yes, there are other names that I could throw in the hat and say, hey, Ospreay, Okada. I mean, there's just so many people at this point that could be a world champion feud for him. I don't see those names that I see. I don't see the television show being booked to build those people up. Whereas in WWE, you have Drew McIntyre and Punk and all of these different guys. Gunther, like that upper mid card is ready to go up at any point in time and challenge for a title. In AEW, I'm not seeing that. So I think where I disagree with you is that I think AEW did have this planned in advance. I don't think AEW had anything planned for Swerve as post-champion that was good enough to be better than this storyline. So in order to make people happy, they have to end the show in a big way. And that's why I said earlier, the big miss was not having Swerve involved. No matter what Swerve does, by the way, whatever Swerve does, nothing will be bigger than this storyline because of the way they ended the show. And then I feel like what happened after the segment, like if they had Swerve end the show, you know, checking on Tony Khan, and it was kind of made, you know, like he was worried about Tony. Then he did that promo on Collision. Man, the NFL draft thing wouldn't have even been a big deal if they used that time allotted to make Swerve and the Elite the big focus. But unfortunately, again, we're not talking, people aren't talking about the television show. They're talking about the noise outside of it.
No, and AEW, listen, I agree with you. I don't know why they didn't merge everything together. It's like they didn't really think this one out. And the way you make it sound is exactly how it should have came off, because then at least you're featuring your world champion and not leaving him off to the side as the fifth priority from the top on Wednesday night. Everything else just felt more important than what he was doing. It's like, I told several people this. Would WWE treat Roman that way? Would WWE treat Cody that way? No, they would never do. This is your guy. And I mentioned the other previous AEW champions. They haven't been treated that way. So why treat this guy this way? Now I have to ask you, because of everything that's going on, people are already saying, oh yeah, Swerve is a transitional champion. He's just keeping that belt warm for Will Ospreay in London when they go to All In. He's going to win the championship there. He's going to be a transitional champion. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. I hope to God not, because he's worth so much more than that. I don't really see Will Ospreay being a world champion this year, nor do I think he needs it. I think he's a big enough star without the championship where he can wait on that and have a great payoff somewhere down the line and not kind of meddle in what Swerve is doing. Plus, the AEW championship doesn't really turn over that quickly. But I ask you this, with everything that's happened so far with Swerve, AEW seemingly got off on the wrong foot. Ratings are not going to really reflect, Swerve bringing interest to the show, and we know it's not his fault. It really falls in the lap of Tony Khan and the creative team. Viewership isn't going to be there. Interest isn't going to be there. You know at the end of all this, it's going to rub off on him. They're going to blame him. Oh, he wasn't the right guy. The ratings are suffering and the interest is suffering because of who's at the top. They always go to blame the champion. Will he be blamed? And will it be fair for everybody to blame him when the real problem is Tony Khan, and the problem that is Tony Khan existed well before Swerve was even the world champion?
Yeah. Look, JD, let me ask you a question. If you're building a house, I don't know much about construction, but let's say you're building a house and brick by brick, layer by layer, you think you have it perfect, right? And at some point, you're finishing the house and the house falls down because you realize that there wasn't enough bricks or it wasn't done correctly, right? That's what's happened here with AEW. The foundation of AEW It's not built upon building stars that are ready for those big time feuds. Because I actually don't agree with you. Ospreay and Swerve is perfect for All In. Swerve can beat Ospreay, right? He could beat Ospreay at All In. Now, obviously, a lot of people would disagree with that because it's at Wembley, but Swerve beating Ospreay has been built up in AEW as this next big thing. He won the Casino Gauntlet match. He's winning these matches on television. You know, he's very involved. He did the stuff with the Callis family, right? Now, when I see Ospreay losing to Swerve, that's AEW cementing Swerve as the champion. He's the guy that beat Ospreay. He stopped Ospreay from getting gold. My thing is, it's like building a house. And AEW is rushing to build the house. And they are very quickly trying to build the house instead of realizing, hey, we have a lower card and a mid card that could benefit from winning important matches. And again, use that ranking system. These wins actually matter. They're climbing the ranks. And that way, if AEW went back to the foundation and started a new house, aka a new storyline, you already have people prepared to get to that next spot, and therefore your construction job is done, right? And then you just cycle it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. We don't need a neurologist here. We don't need a brain surgeon here. You have 2 hours of TV on Wednesdays, an hour on Fridays, 2 hours on Saturdays. When you are building these shows, something is happening on TV. When a person wins, there should be a clear trajectory of what is happening there. Ospreay and Okada seem to be the two guys every week on TV where I feel like that is currently happening. But where else is that happening? So when I look at Swerve and Ospreay, I'm thinking, hey, that's beautiful. I want that match. I want to watch that. I actually want to go to Wembley Stadium and watch that match. But at the same time, too, what are they doing with everybody else on that roster? Wrestling is a freak show, dude. There's injuries. There's a lot of things happening. Anything can happen. I don't wish it upon anybody. But now I'm thinking, who are those guys to step up if need be?
Well, like you said,
they have the roster. They have the talent.
Well, like you said, they're building a house. Tony Khan is going to, I mean, there's a reason why he put Ospreay and Roddy in a match for the International Championship or the Continental, whatever. I can't even, I don't even know what fucking title. The International Championship. So many fucking titles. International Championship. He's going to win that. He's not going to lose that. So he's going to be the new international champion. Mercedes is going to win the TBS championship. Swerve is the AEW World Champion. The Young Bucks are going to be the tag team champions. Okada's the Continental Champion. They are building their house. That is what they're going with. That is the foundation that is going to be AEW. This new generation, this new dynasty. There's a reason why they named the pay-per-view Dynasty, because coming out of it, you're going to see the pieces fall into place, and you're going to see the dynasty that is AEW formed right before our very eyes. I understand where you're coming from with Ospreay, but I don't really think Ospreay right now is world champion. He needs to be world champion now. I don't really see it, because especially after what we saw with Bryan Danielson, I think we're going to get at least another match out of that. Where do you want that to happen?
I mean, the way I look at Bryan Danielson and Ospreay, that match was built up as a once in a lifetime match. Obviously it wasn't, but like, it was built up as a very big deal. And that wasn't for a championship. Why can't that be applied to other things, other matches, other storylines, other wrestlers? That's all I'm saying. Listen, JD, it's very simple. WWE and AEW have this thing, right? You can do something so very good. In WWE right now, it's having the long-term vision and how to get there. In AEW, it's putting on excellent matches. And sometimes, occasionally, they have one or two big stories, right? But what I want to see is those same formulas applied from top to bottom, from beginning to end, across everything on the show. WWE lacks fantastic wrestling matches. AEW does them extremely well. Cool. Imagine how much better WWE would be, which they're already hot right now. But imagine if WWE said, hey, listen, we're going to have two wrestlers and we want you to wrestle for 20 minutes, very limited restrictions, go out there and do your thing. And if WWE did that every single match while still fitting in your sports entertainment and your promos and your segments and your storytelling, people would look at WWE as the ultimate wrestling show. But WWE doesn't do that, and that's one of the biggest issues. When I see AEW from time to time have a really big storyline, and then other things are happening on the show, and some of them are good, some of them are bad. Look, it's not going to be perfect, but consistently use that formula across the show, and you will see everybody get over. I don't want Ospreay to win the belt, but Ospreay is being built up. If Ospreay lost to Swerve, perception's reality. Holy shit, Swerve is beating the guy that AEW is quote unquote forcing down your throat. It would actually be a really big moment for Swerve. And Ospreay could rebound from that. But we're talking about Ospreay and Swerve. We're not talking about many of the other people on the roster, and that's the issue. That right there is single-handedly the issue. They can do one or two things good. Why not apply that across the show? And for some reason, they just simply don't do it.
So why does it have to be Ospreay?
Well, I think Ospreay is the guy that's been built up. I mean, I hate to say he's been forced down our throats, but it's very clear the way that they present him as a big deal since he's signed full-time. I mean, every week he's part of the show, and he's an integral part of AEW. It is very clear that when they signed Ospreay, fuck you, WWE. You didn't land him. We did. And we're going to show you why you missed out on him. Right? Yes, that's what I'm seeing.
That's a huge part of it. Yes. And Tony Khan is very petty like that. But what about Adam Cole? Why can't it be Adam Cole?
It could be, but he's injured. So it's unfortunate.
When he gets back from injury, I feel like Adam Cole would fit into that slot pretty well. I think he should have been the world champ. If he was not injured and none of this ever happened with MJF and Adam Cole, I think Adam Cole would have been the world champion by now.
That's, to be fair, that's the only reason why I haven't been too disappointed in that whole situation, because Adam Cole and MJF being injured definitely hurt them. But now it's 2024, and man, how does MJF even come back to this version of AEW? Like, I know he could wrestle, I know he can go, but it just seems like this version of AEW may not even be a good fit for him. So injuries are one thing and you have to work around them. But again, I'm looking for that next guy to pop up and make a big splash. I remember Action Andretti beat Chris Jericho and I was like shocked. And then the same thing every time. I've been saying this for 3 years. Follow up, follow up, follow up. And it seems like that's a very big issue in that company.
It is. There's a very big issue. Now, going back to Tony Khan, you know, he did what he did on Wednesday. It led to the NFL draft. And I said countless times that AEW needs weekly episodic television, a big angle that's going to get people to say, you know what, I can't wait for next week. I'm interested in seeing how this plays out, something that plays out long term. Now, attacking the boss or the owner of the company isn't anything new. We've seen this done time and time and time again. And Tony has stated before that he would never be an on-air character, and here we have 2 shows this week, and he very much is an on-air character. He got tombstoned or Tony Khan driving on Wednesday. He started the show on Saturday coming out in a neck brace. He was all over ESPN, NFL Network, Barstool Sports, TMZ. And then Friday, he says something that basically eliminates everything that he did good. Everybody was like, oh, man, that's so cool. Tony Khan's got the neck brace. Look at him in the war room with the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. I love that. I love the fact that he's keeping kayfabe alive. He may have been selling the fucking neck brace injury like garbage. I mean, he's moving his neck around. I mean, bro, don't move your neck, all right? Smiling. All the cameras are on. He's having a great time. He loves this. He loves pro wrestling. Great. And then Friday comes. And Friday, he was on the NFL Network, and he set everything off and erased all the good that they did the past couple of days. Khan took shots at the WWE. He's known to do this, and including, you know, when WWE allegedly tampered with AEW talent contracts, leading him to tweet about Vince McMahon, Triple H, and others. He stated in the past that this is when business became personal for him because it came at a time when his mother was fighting for her life. He compared AEW to being the Pepsi of pro wrestling while going up against the evil juggernaut, WWE, and referred to them as the Harvey Weinstein, a disgraced former Hollywood executive who's rotting in jail right now somewhere in California. AEW, we've been doing this for 5 years. We are the most successful sports startup since the AFL pre-merger. There has not been a challenger brand that has gained as much market share as AEW in many, many years. We are like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. And this is where I thought he was going to say, you know, WWE was the Coke of pro wrestling. No, he didn't say that. We're up against the evil juggernaut. WWE's our competitor. That's who we're facing. AEW, like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. WWE's the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling. I'm really proud of what we do here. Now, he compared AEW to being the Pepsi of pro wrestling while going up against the evil juggernaut WWE and referred to them as Harvey Weinstein. And everybody took this as like, bro, what the fuck you doing? Like, shut your mouth. So I immediately take to social media and I say, all right, well, he's not too far off from the truth. I mean, Anytime Vince McMahon and his name is being dragged through the mud, there's going to be somewhere where JD is smiling. I hate Vince. I wanted him gone for the longest time. I'm glad. I hope he rots. And most of what Tony Khan implied there was true. But he generalized all of WWE. And yes, WWE is in the lawsuit mentioned by Janelle Grant as a company. But, Ango, I said, Tony Khan is really going to face a lot of criticism online about this because he mentioned WWE, but what do the men and women there who obviously were against what Vince McMahon did, the men and women who work in that company who are innocent, the men and women that work in that locker room that go on TV, why do they have to be lumped into a situation where he's saying WWE is like the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling? He meant it as a way to kind of throw Vince McMahon under the bus, but he mentioned WWE as a whole. What about all the people that work for AEW who have friends in WWE and they're looked at as, well, what the fuck is your boss saying about the company that I've been loyal to for X amount of years? What about the people that may have contracts coming up? Or some people on the independent scene who may have friends in WWE and in AEW, now that may be deterred from going to AEW because of the comments that Tony Khan said. I mean, what did you think about the comments here? Because I thought Tony Khan undid all the good that happened in the last 2 days. He basically eliminated that. And like you previously said, and I previously said, nobody's talking about the neck brace. Nobody's talking about the angle. Nobody's talking about Swerve. They're all talking about this comment that he made on the NFL Network.
So I want everybody to know two things. One, I love the angle closing out Dynamite, and I love the fact that he's selling the neck brace. I am one of those guys, 1,000%. I'm like, whoa, this is great, right?
Likewise.
The problem that I have, though, and I'm just one of those guys, I think taking shots at each other is fun. Take a jab. Go on commentary. Tweet a little something out. Have fun with it. Go off. Do whatever you please, right?
It's happened for years, too.
And it's fine. Keep doing the shots. I'm not one of those guys who are like, oh, it's so, whatever. The problem that is occurring here is, one, I think Tony Khan is a smart motherfucker. He is. Very meticulous. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was going to say. I fully believe that Tony Khan was prepared because Tony Khan immediately after his comments, what did he do? Oh, AEW, watch AEW on TNT and TBS and this and that, right? Oh, what about your, he did an interview with that Rich Eisen guy or whatever. And it's like, oh, do you want to donate your neck brace? And he's like, well, you got to wait till I'm healed. Tony Khan is a very, very smart guy. When he makes these comments, he knows exactly what he's doing because Tony Khan is a promoter. And Tony Khan, I'm going to say this. If Tony Khan were watching this, I want Tony Khan to hear me loud and clear because this is something that not a lot of people are starting to realize. But there was a side of Tony Khan where when you took a shot at WWE, it was playful and it was fun. Now, when you hear Tony Khan take a shot at WWE, it's like somebody walking into a room and trying to tell everybody, hey, look at me, I'm cool. And my product is cool. And my wrestling show is cool. And I have the coolest thing. AEW is where the best people wrestle. But I want Tony Khan to go back to being the guy that everybody loved. And instead, when Tony Khan is taking shots at WWE and when Tony Khan is taking shots like this specific one, I want Tony Khan to realize that it's rubbing people the wrong way. I remember, JD, I'm going to tell you a story. I was at AEW Dynamite the first time they came to Detroit. Random fans saw Tony Khan behind the Trons or whatever, and he's like dancing to someone's music, and it wasn't on TV. But I remember the fans saying, man, he's such a fucking mark. And I look at this guy and I'm like, bro, you should be happy that we have a billionaire who actually loves pro wrestling. That's the Tony Khan I want to see. That was the Tony Khan I loved. I was like, man, he's one of us, but he's got $1 billion. The Tony Khan that I'm seeing right now is I'm trying very hard to get a reaction out of everybody, and I don't care if you're talking about AEW in a positive or bad way, at least you're talking about AEW. And I don't like that version of Tony Khan. When Tony Khan made this comment, at the end of the day, he's creating a mentality. You got his wrestlers on Twitter saying, watch all wrestling, enjoy wrestling, tribalism stupid. And you got him doing that. And I don't think it reflects great on the company when you go that far into it because, yeah, the allegations against Vince are absolutely insane. 100% disagree with those allegations. I would never in a million years endorse that. I would never There's no way to justify that. If those allegations and the lawsuit comes out, you know, all this stuff comes out about it, in my mind, like anytime I see something about it, there's no way I could justify those things that are being alleged. You know, when Tony Khan makes this kind of statement, you're now getting to the area where you are going to offend your own audience and you're going to offend people. And instead, maybe just take your shots at Vince or whoever else was allegedly involved. I can't remember, John Laurinaitis or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But this is a different regime. It just, to me, it reeked of desperation. Not trying to be long-winded, but it just seemed like this is Tony Khan trying to tell everybody, hey, we're the cool company, we're the cool people, and oh, by the way, watch our show. Let your product do the talking, man. I love the shots back and forth. You guys get mad at Triple H talking shit about what, Will Ospreay or whatever? Cool, take those shots. You're going to look fucking stupid if your show is ass. And I say that all the time. Take your shots, but be prepared not to miss. Make sure your product is on fire. And the one thing I will say here, and this is the biggest thing, and I swear to God, I really hope Tony Khan, I want everybody to send this to Tony Khan. Because to Tony Khan, when I talk about that story of Tony Khan being the mark and the guy who loves pro wrestling, that doesn't seem like the Tony Khan we're watching today. To me, it looks like Tony Khan is trying to fight against the Sharks. And they're not at that stage willing to or able to do that, in my opinion. I think what they need to do is let their product do the talking. All in, 80,000 plus people attended. You're not the fucking WWE. I couldn't imagine another company doing that, and you did it. Do that. Let people talk about how good your product is. Let people talk about how your business is. But your ratings are going down. Your attendance is going down. You don't really have, you know, all this other stuff happening that's positive for your company. And you have a massive TV angle happening. Get your people over. Use that TV time to put over Swerve. Use that TV time. Hey, I have an issue with Jack Perry. Now this is going to be very complicated. I have a lot of trust. You know, Swerve Strickland, our world champion, was there to console me on Wednesday night. I trust my people. We're going to take care of this. Find out on Wednesday night Dynamite. But instead, you're making those kind of comments, and dude, to me, that was just. I get what you're trying to do. I think he planned it out. I think he's a marketer. It's coming off a little too desperate, and unfortunately, it's like. I don't know. It just, you know what I'm trying to say?
No,
JD?
I know. I listen. I get where you're going, and Tony is not the same person. No matter how many people want to fucking tell me that he is, and that he's got a plan, and he's always this. He loves what he does. That's great. I have no problem with Tony Khan. I'm sure Tony Khan is a swell guy. I'll have a fucking White Claw with him anytime. But Tony Khan's reply to what happened, to the Harvey Weinstein comments, he says this. Well, I think we got a ton of coverage for AEW. I think it's important to say I think AEW is the best wrestling company in many ways in the world. I think that we have the best wrestlers, the best matches. We're putting on the best shows. I think the best pay-per-views, events of the year have been AEW Revolution and AEW Dynasty. That was his answer to the Harvey Weinstein comments. It got a ton of coverage for AEW. That's all he cares about. He cares about being an online troll, going back and forth with irrelevant accounts because they get under his skin more than keeping the focus on his own show. Tony had a real chance to keep the focus on AEW by being everywhere. I mean, I think they had a film crew following this guy around, documenting his fucking day-to-day activity for the NFL Draft, going to Collision, going to Dynamite, the neck brace, the whole ordeal. He had a real chance to keep the focus on AEW, and he brings the focus right back to WWE and erases all the goodwill and all the interest that people had coming out of Wednesday, and he ended up embarrassing himself, and he ended up embarrassing AEW. And then he embarrasses his own fucking roster, too. Remember the Adam Copeland rah-rah speech that happened several weeks ago, focusing on the positives. Yet we got Tony Khan, the biggest tribalist of them all, highlighting the fucking negatives. So you sent Adam Copeland, one of the biggest legends that you got signed to a current AEW deal. You send him out there to talk about the positives because there's too much negatives in pro wrestling. And here you are fucking basically making him look like a complete dipshit live on television. Tony once again made Adam Copeland look like a fool. And I know AEW's under constant attack and probably would have been anyway, but Tony ends up always bringing the negativity right back to AEW because of his gatekeeping mentality and his tribalism. It all starts with him. And this is why we say the leadership at the top is just fucking awful. It is just truly awful. Why, like you said, why not sell the fucking feud? Why not play up your world champion? Why not have Swerve out there consoling you and being the fucking model employee and the model champion that he is? Why not play up the fact that your employees took you out in this cool angle? Tease what's coming up on Wednesday, what the possible repercussions could be. The fact that you're not going to be there live to run the show like you usually have been for the last 5 years. Why not? Why didn't you mention anything along these lines? No, we got to mention WWE. Just like Will Ospreay mentioned Triple H when Triple H never fucking mentioned Ospreay's name. We all alluded to that Triple H maybe mentioned Will Ospreay. Could have been talking about anybody. Could have been talking about Mercedes. But they go right back to WWE. Then they do the Jack Perry CM Punk thing, which is a WWE thing. We didn't need the Jack Perry CM Punk footage to be shown to tell a fucking storyline between FTR. None of that would have happened if Ariel Helwani didn't even interview CM Punk. We didn't need none of this. But yet you always got to go right back to WWE and take the focus off your own fucking company. That's the problem. And he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit. Priorities, we talk about priorities, and we talk about his mentality is just like of an online troll. That's the way he's going to. He loves it. He doesn't give a shit if he embarrasses his own company. But in the end, the fans are losing interest. What's more important, Tony? I know I'm losing interest. Tell you flat out right now, I'm losing interest. All starts with would you ever see Triple H do this shit? That's the fucking thing. And I don't want to compare the two because they're two different people. But at some point, bro, you got to be a professional. You got to be a boss. He's not. I don't know.
JD, let me ask you. You ever worked for a poor leader in your lifetime?
Yes, I have. Several.
Okay. What was your reaction to working with somebody above you that maybe wasn't pleasant to work with?
The biggest instance that I could tell you is that they said something to me that was completely out of line. And for weeks, up until I could muster up the strength and the courage to go up to him and say I quit, I basically half-assed my job up until that point. Didn't give a shit. Came in late. Purposely came in late. Didn't do the things that I was supposed to do. Slacked at work, took a longer lunch, and then several weeks after that, I said, you know what? I'm fucking done. I quit. I just got lazy. I just got into this loyal mentality, then shifted to like, I don't give a shit anymore. And I quit. And that's when I went to YouTube full time.
Probably the best decision you've ever made.
Yeah.
It's funny. Before I started YouTube full time, I worked for a boss 11 years. I worked in a very high up position. For 9 years, everything was beautiful. All it took was one moment in which I realized my leadership were not true leaders, in which I decided never going to give them another minute of my time. I always believed in loyalty. And when I look at a leader, I like leaders who make me want to work for them. I want them to make me feel like I should run through a wall of bricks for them. And I feel like in the beginning stages of AEW, they were building that company where everybody's like, hey, this is something I could get behind. This is a different kind of pro wrestling company. Wrestling matters. Taking care of our talents matter. Everything matters here. A little bit different from what we've seen from the big guys in WWE. Now I feel like it's gotten to the point with AEW that these types of comments could very well affect that type of behavior and that type of mentality. That's what makes me fearful. The tribalism that exists on social media, I'd say 99.9% of it is all fake. I really do. I don't think these people genuinely watch the product. I don't think their opinions are 100% what they actually believe. And I think those are the people that Tony Khan cares about to get cool points with them. And instead, when you have this TV time, again, I don't mind taking shots, have fun, go off, do your thing. But when you have TV time with coverage of the NFL Network, and you have a very good angle, which you haven't had this hot of an angle in a very long time. There was that shock factor. Tony Khan, who's not a TV regular, got pile drive. And you are talking about your competition. The guy that I would run through a brick wall for, the type of leader I would do that for, that doesn't look like the leader that exists. And I always go back. All it takes is one moment I worked at that same job 10, 11 years. I was a very high up there, like very, very high up. And it took one moment, literally 60 seconds for me to realize this is not somebody I want to work for. So it's very easy for people in AEW. I'm sure a lot of people in this company looked at that and said, man, I love his passion. I love that he cares about us and he wants to beat the competition. But I think a lot of times you have to look at what's coming out of your mouth. And it's not just embarrassing himself, like you said. He's embarrassing the people that represent him. And when you have that opportunity to go on the NFL Network and you're selling the angle, holy shit, it's cool, right? Use that to put over your roster. Use that to put over your program. Simple as that.
I agree. Someone in the chat said people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. Yeah, absolutely. I listen, I didn't really care for the place that I worked for, but I knew the place that I worked for was rich with history. They were a high-end, this was way back in my late 20s maybe, high-end jewelry place on Wall Street, right in front of the Twin Towers. And the boss that I worked for was very knowledgeable, and he knew his shit. And at first, I thought he was cool. And then he said something to me that was very unboss-like, and it really hit home personally. And I know, I think I told this story with some of you guys that have been with me, the OGs that have been with me. He was sitting at his desk, and I got a phone call from my mom early in the morning, hysterically crying. Family dog died. And I needed to rush home because anytime I heard my mom crying on the phone, that dropped what I do. I jumped back on the fucking 5 train in New York City, and I jetted home. I go to him. I'm like, boss, my mom is on the phone crying. The family dog died. I got to go. I'm sorry. I got to leave my shift. He looks me dead in the face and says, so what? It's only a pet. From that moment, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, motherfucker, you're lucky I even come here tomorrow. I lasted 2 more weeks, and then that was it. Gave him my 2 weeks, and I'm done.
Yeah.
People leave bosses. They don't leave jobs. How many of those people in AEW love that fucking company, love what it stands for, realize how important it is to this fucking industry, but they don't agree with the mentality of their boss, who's basically a 40-year-old online troll? It's something to really take into consideration, honestly. And a lot of people are losing interest over it. I don't know what needs to be done to fix it, but something needs to happen and happen fast. And I hope to God the last week coming out of Wednesday, they put their fucking heads together and come up with something cool on Wednesday. And a lot of people are mentioning, oh, is this their NWO moment? No, it's not their NWO moment. This is not Hogan. This is not Nash. This is not Hall. The NWO changed and molded the industry forever, which is still being felt today. This is not that. Kevin Nash even said it. He's like, this was more like the finger poke of doom with what they did on Wednesday. It's not the NWO. They changed an industry. The only thing AEW is changing right now is fucking channels. That's it. The ratings aren't where they should be, and they aren't where they need to be, honestly, for weeks now. So I ask you, Ango, with the ratings down coming out of Wednesday, coming out of Dynasty, they obviously have heavy competition. Raw's been down too. We're not excusing WWE. They are down as well. Raw also fell. Kenny Omega's announced for Wednesday. What are we thinking about going into Wednesday? Because I got a lot of questions coming out of this angle that Tony Khan really left open-ended, and you know how analytical I am. I'm going to start asking questions. So I'll start with this. Let's start with Kenny Omega. What type of role is Kenny Omega going to be playing on Wednesday? Because clearly he's going to play into the fact that he got fired from the Elite. Who knows if he's going to be cleared to wrestle? I hope so. Maybe they're downplaying it. Maybe he's ready. But just as a what if he's not ready? Do they bring him back as a catalyst in getting mega heat on the Elite in Winnipeg or Canada, wherever they are? Or is he going to be back as a GM for the night and then get beat up? What type of role is he going to play on Wednesday?
I've been saying it for 3 years. They need a GM. It doesn't look like Kenny Omega is cleared. I hope he is. He's one of my favorites. It makes a lot of sense for him to be inserted as the authority figure here. And, you know, I don't know too much specifically about diverticulitis. I'm not a doctor. I never studied for that type of stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I know about it. I know it was serious. Have him on TV if it's possible, because again, I don't know. Have him as an authority figure and have him assemble the baby faces that are going to go up against the Elite at some point in Blood and Guts. This is your Bloodline storyline.
Yep.
Every week, I should see progression here. Kenny Omega coming back. He doesn't need to be revealed as the GM right away. Have him come back. And, you know, maybe Tony Khan can't travel or whatever. He assumes as EVP, he can take over. I don't know. I want to see something big here. And I don't want... The biggest thing that they got to do, JD, is they got to let things breathe. Let it marinate. Put it on the grill. Let it sizzle a little bit. Look, man. Don't put the chicken on the grill and leave it undercooked. That's how you get sick, right?
Yeah.
Prepare this beautiful meal each week and start tomorrow. If Swerve's going to be involved in this 6 months from now, Swerve needs to be involved in it tomorrow. If Kenny Omega can wrestle and he's going to be involved in this, let him be there for for the next several weeks. Let him be on TV. Let's see that start tomorrow. Give me a good idea of what the future looks like. Let it breathe, let it marinate, and let it cook properly. This is a massive storyline. And by the way, I'm not a fan of Jack Perry. Never really been a fan of Jack Perry. And this angle has me interested in Jack Perry. So now, do the same thing with some other guys on your roster. Get me excited about them. Start with Kenny and start assembling the baby faces that are going to go up against them. And that should begin tomorrow. It shouldn't be on Rampage. It shouldn't be on Collision. It should be on Dynamite and end the show in a very big way.
Who those people are, I don't know. But I think AEW could benefit from a GM. And the reason why we say GM and are dancing around the topic of Kenny potentially being an authority figure on the show or whoever being an authority figure on the show, it's because Tony Khan is not allowed to travel and he will be running the company remotely. So he won't be there per storyline because he's too injured. The injury is going to keep him grounded in Jacksonville. So I ask, who's running the company? Are we going to get an interim GM? Now, the logic gap that is quite vast, this is a Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard level logic gap here. Tony feared for his life with CM Punk and Jack Perry. We all know what he said. We all seen the footage. I didn't really think he feared for his life. I thought it was all fucking bullshit. Tony feared for his life with CM Punk and Jack Perry, and the incident happened all in. Tony fired CM Punk for a fucking basic headlock. That's what I saw, or a shove. Now Jack Perry in the Elite attacked Tony Khan. So my question to everybody is, why would Tony fire CM Punk for what he did and not fire the Elite after what they did on Wednesday? And what are the repercussions going to be there? Because if I'm Tony Khan, stripping them of the tag team championships, I'm firing all of them, minus Okada. He didn't really do anything. But isn't that a huge logic gap? Why wouldn't Tony go out there and fire all of the Elite after what they did? Now, I understand we got to suspend our beliefs here or disbelief, but doesn't that serve to be a huge fucking gap in the story? How are they going to come up with something to fill that logic gap in? Have you asked yourself that question?
Yeah, that's easy. Honestly, that's solved simply by Kenny Omega coming out and basically just announcing, hey, Tony Khan is not cleared for duties for medical reasons. He's going to be out for, 8 to 12 months or whatever the hell they want to do. Have him come out and tell the world that he's going to be running the show as a general manager. I mean, you could have set this up multitude of ways, but look, the Elite should be opening up the show and they should come out and say, hey, going forward, we run AEW Dynamite and Rampage and Collision. We make the decisions around here. Kenny Omega should show up and go face to face with them and let them know, hey, Tony Khan is not cleared. He will not be traveling with us. And as CEO of the company, he has revoked your guys' EVP, your EVP positions. You guys have all been fined. And as of this moment, I'm running the show going forward. And then listen, you guys are all suspended. And okay, they get suspended, blah, blah, blah. Now they're just doing whatever the hell they want. They're causing madness all over the show, that type of thing. And then obviously it culminates into a blood and guts match.
I think that works.
Simple.
I think that works. Or I brought up this potential because I've been asking for this for quite some time. Maybe the Elite run Dynamite and they run with Dynamite for a little bit and Tony runs Collision and we get some sort of split rosters. Now, I know that's probably fantasy booking, and I've always said AEW could absolutely hugely benefit from split rosters and splitting some of that roster and putting a dedicated roster on Saturday and keeping a dedicated roster on Wednesday, because one of the things as to why I think their ticket sales are low, why their ratings are low, and why there's no interest is because we don't know what we're getting on any given week on a Wednesday or a Saturday. And I'm watching Saturday, Ango, and I'm watching this shit, and I see Ray Phoenix come out, wrestle Black Taurus on Saturday night for about 20 minutes. What the fuck did it mean that they wrestled for 20 minutes? Ray Phoenix comes back after, 6 months being away. Was he advertised anywhere? How the fuck do I know Ray Phoenix is on the show? Ray Phoenix is a big deal. This is what I'm talking about getting their priorities right. If I knew what was happening on Saturday, and I knew who was on Saturday, and I knew who was on Wednesday, and you know, a family paying money to go see this shit live knows what they're getting, I feel like interest would be up. Like, the shows would feel a lot more organized. The show would feel a lot more structured. Maybe it leads to Tony running one show and the Elite running the other. I mean, I could dream. I don't think that's the situation they're going in, but yeah, it could lead to something like that. But I do think you're correct. I said this on Wednesday too. I do think that we're getting blood and guts, and this is their major angle. Whenever blood and guts happens, I don't know. Usually happens in the summertime, but if they want to hold off on it and let it breathe, like you said, and plan it out, long-term booking, I mean, this could be their bloodline story for the rest of the year. I like it.
I know you're fantasy booking, but I want to ask you, because obviously with fantasy booking, sometimes you don't think of all the holes within the idea. But why would Tony Khan allow these guys to run one of his shows when they pile drived him? I'm just wondering. I'm not trying to be a dick. I just don't get why he would allow them. I would just say fuck off and go get a job somewhere else, and then they need to go cause havoc, and then, you know, in order to get reinstated, they got to win something or do something, you know.
It's the same thing that I said before. Why would Tony Khan, no matter if he's there or running the show remotely, why would he allow these guys back on television? Why would he not strip them of their championships? Why would he not fire them? He's the boss. He signs the paychecks. So, I mean, at some point, we got to take a step back and say it's pro wrestling after all. Like, it's fucking outlandish, but
sure. But are we getting like a retribution type storyline here where they're just, you know?
I don't. Well, who? If that's the case, who does Kenny bring in? Who does Kenny bring in to battle the quote unquote heels here? Does he bring in Adam Page, Swerve? Do we get Motor City Machine Guns, Pac? Like, who do we get? FTR?
Told you, man. This company's got foundation issues. It's a structural issue. They don't have the structure. They don't have the foundation. They're not building up stars that immediately speak to me and say, hey, they should be fighting for them. Whereas in WWE, and again, I hate to compare side by side, but that was one thing WWE did effectively. You know, it's like Jey Uso, Cody, Sami Zayn. Like, it's like the Avengers in the WWE. And with AEW, I'm not saying they need to copy WWE, but what I'm saying is they need to prepare people for that stage. They need to create that ladder where people could climb up. And it doesn't have to be based on wins and losses. It just has to be based on the way they're presented and how they're involved moving forward. It's a structural issue. I've been saying this for 3 years now. AEW has a major issue with the structure and foundation of their television product. They do a lot of things really good, and they do a lot of things really bad. But one of those things that are really bad is that they are not having a system in place for when some storyline like this happens, there are people that have been featured every single week that are credible to join them. Obviously, FTR has to be involved because FTR got attacked by the Elite and Jack Perry screwed them over. You know what's crazy, JD? Let's actually just, for shits and giggles, CM Punk never got fired in AEW. Let's just say that never happened. CM Punk, for whatever reason, couldn't get a meeting with the Elite. They couldn't talk things through. I think CM Punk and Kenny Omega were fine, but everybody else kind of had an issue. You got some stuff happening behind the scenes with Colt Cabana, and all these people got drama, right? But imagine if CM Punk was never injured. They had this conversation, and they said, you know what? The Elite is going to completely change with Jack Perry and Okada and the Young Bucks. Like, looking back, imagine how great this actually would have been with Punk running Collision, being the real AEW World Champion. You know, like, this is a huge issue for me. They could have done something like this before he got fired. And they couldn't sit down in the room together. They couldn't get shit figured out. And here we are watching the product. And look, we're fantasy booking a little bit and trying to think of ideas of what they can do. But I think it's a real telling problem that nothing stands out to me in which I can say, hey, this guy right here immediately makes sense. FTR, Swerve, they make sense. But by the way, don't forget, Swerve actually has a group that he's a part of, but we don't really talk about that anymore because that's not really featured on TV every week. There's too many holes and too many issues, too many cracks, And that's why we're having this problem to begin
Yes.
with. It's a structure issue.
Where's Brian Cage? Where's the mogul? What did the mogul embassy just fucking go up in flames? Like what happened? Like, I mean, we have every right to ask these questions. That's just one example. I don't know. I don't listen. Going into when I'm interested to see what they give us. What Tony's explanation is going to be about keeping these guys on television. What the Elite's explanation is as to why they attacked Tony Khan when they shouldn't really have a problem with Tony Khan. He brought back Jack Perry and allowed Jack Perry through the doors again. Tony Khan gave the Young Bucks their job back and fired the guy that they wanted gone from the company. What could be the problem as to why they attacked Tony Khan? I mean, you guys got some major fucking work to do, man. So I'm hoping you guys got something planned written out that's going to make sense, because I'll be live tomorrow night, 10:30, and I'm going to fucking shit all over this shit if you don't give me some solid explanation. Because right now, I see what you're doing. I appreciate it. It's what you need to do. But man, oh man, you got some explaining to do.
It's an uphill battle that they've kind of forced on themselves.
It's crazy. And AEW has a big uphill battle, not only with what we've seen and the structure of their shows, but I mean, you look at the injuries that have mounted up. Adam Cole is out. MJF is out. Kenny Omega is out. Adam Page is out for personal reasons. I mean, those are some big names. And we got some news on MJF. And this is coming first from the Solomonster, believe it or not, Jason Solomon. He said on Twitter, which was then backed up by Wrestle purists on social media. Solomonster says, so a bit of bad news, hearing through the grapevine that it will be a while before we see MJF back in the ring. PT was not a success, and he had to undergo the knife. Not sure of any timetable, but that's obviously a blow to AEW. His presence has been missed. Absolutely, it has been missed. I don't think the shows or the company have been the same since MJF's been gone. Wrestle purists, which, you know, they do have some connects. They actually updated Solomonster's tweet and reported that MJF has indeed undergone surgery to get his left shoulder fixed. And they say on social media, sources close to the situation have confirmed to Wrestle purists that MJF has undergone surgery on his left shoulder. MJF was originally aiming for a March return and met with Tony Khan in Boston to discuss creative plans. The injuries to MJF and Adam Cole have dramatically affected creative plans for MJF and the Undisputed Kingdom feud. Max was looking to wrap the program up. There is no timetable on his return. Listen, at the end of the day, I mean, they got so many problems right now that I hope that they fix and rectify the problems they have right now instead of adding MJF to an overwhelming an overall slew of problems. And I don't want them to rush MJF back to television either. I don't want a 75 or 80% MJF returning to television. I think that's unfair to the company, unfair to MJF. We need 100% MJF back to television. But Angle, like we've seen with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre has a badly hyperextended elbow. CM Punk tore his triceps, the other tricep, and he's been on television. He's doing commentary. He played a huge role in Drew McIntyre losing the championship to Damian Priest after he cashed in at WrestleMania Night 2 in the opening match against Seth Rollins. If MJF is nearing a comeback and we're in the last leg of it, I don't see why they can't bring him back to television and use MJF's greatest strength of all, which is him on the microphone. How do you see that playing out, and how do you feel about MJF and the injuries so far, with his absence being heavily felt on AEW television?
Probably not the biggest or most popular opinion, but I feel like when MJF dropped the belt, honestly, I really do feel like AEW was starting to get back on track. Like once Samoa Joe won that belt, AEW was getting back on track. And it's not because I think poorly of MJF. I don't think anything negatively of him. I think he is incredibly talented. But I think the storyline with the Devil and Adam Cole and everything, it was just a little underwhelming. And in real time, I actually enjoyed it, but then I see like the effect of it and obviously injuries and stuff. It was very underwhelming. And it kind of created like a really weird period for this company, right? Samoa Joe wins. Now you got the Swerve thing happening. I'm like, okay, cool. They're back on track. The thing with MJF, though, is I want him back. And there's going to be a lot of people that say, oh, he's going to go to WWE, right? But I want to remind people, and JD, I want your thoughts on this, because this is my question. This is my flaw here. I want MJF back on TV. I want him doing whatever kind of storyline that they throw at him, because I feel like for the most part, he is a great performer. Did we all of a sudden forget that he was supposed to be a free agent and bidding war of 2024 and all of these other things that they shoved down our throat for months and months on television? Because none of it's being brought up. None of it's being talked about. So if you're AEW, do you go back to that? What am I supposed to think about MJF? I could only go off of what they told me on TV. He even wrote the Players Tribune thing. You know, hey, there's going to be a lot of talk about my contract and my injury, blah, blah, blah. There's been zero talk about it. MJF should be on TV when he's cleared. I want him at 100%. But how can I know what the hell is he supposed to be doing on TV when there's been no mention of the things that they've mentioned before? That's the question.
They may just have to suck it up and treat it just like the Adam Cole Undisputed Era. Kingdom. Sorry. I can't tell the difference. Undisputed Kingdom situation. You know, everything just got turned upside down, and I mean, it died a fucking miserable death, that angle. And I don't know how you bring MJF, like you said, back to an AEW that is completely different than when he was last there. I don't think they can play off the fact that he was teasing going into a contract year and dropping Nick Khan's name and Triple H's name on AEW television. Like, I don't think we're gonna get that MJF. It doesn't even fit anymore. I mean, it fit back in November, it fit back in December potentially, but now we're moving on into late 2024 before we see him again. And the first thing that he's going to do is go after Adam Cole. Adam Cole was the last person that he saw unveiled himself as the devil. Adam Cole was the reason why he lost his most prized possession. I don't see why any of that makes sense anymore. How do you even go back to that? I don't know.
Wardlow?
I do think MJF and Wardlow will be back together as an enemy of my enemy is my friend type of deal. And again, we've seen that, been there, done that with that as well. I mean, I'm not interested in that. I've been saying Wardlow's better off in the E anyway. I mean, just get him out of there. Yeah. Tony doesn't value him. But what else do you do? I mean, it's the most natural progression for MJF coming back to television. Because we see Adam Cole and Wardlow now. They got something going on there with the looks that Adam Cole was giving Wardlow at Dynasty. I mean, I don't think they, and again, it's just AEW just falling on hard times and just a string of bad luck.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But MJF is sorely missed. I mean, I haven't felt as much interest in the product since he's gone away, honestly. I mean, he was the driving force and a lot of the reason why I enjoyed watching weekly. I don't know what everybody else felt. I know a lot of people were like, oh, MJF, the babyface MJF is cringe. I prefer MJF as a heel. I'm like, I get it. But, you know, I appreciate the dynamic character that MJF tried to play as a babyface, showing you his vast skills that he can play both sides of the field. You know, I don't know.
Would you agree that there's obviously a lot of absences? You kind of brought them up earlier. Britt Baker's not off TV and stuff. But do you think with these absences that they're having, do you think there is an easy slot for these people to just jump right into? Because I feel like the answer is yes. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things that they could immediately do with Britt Baker and Mercedes or Tony Storm. And, you know, like, they have a lot of stuff happening where I think some of these absences could just jump right in and things will get better. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Adam Cole and Wardlow is going to set the table for MJF coming back. Jamie Hayter going to go right after Tony Storm. I feel like that's a natural progression there. I don't know whether that happens at Wembley or not. I think that's a tailor-made match for Tony to lose the championship in Wembley to Jamie Hayter. Britt Baker, I do believe, is the one that attacked Mercedes in the dark. And Kenny Omega coming back to television, obviously got a natural in with the Elite. Hangman, same thing, natural in with the Elite. I mean, so a lot of these names that they have missing have built-in stories for them coming back to television. It's just, you know, when and where that's going to happen. And is it going to make a difference? Because even in the absence of all these names, AEW's got the greatest roster in the world, and they still can't fucking do what's right. Because story is king. And right now they're not telling story. And the story that they are telling sometimes is nothing more than a publicity stunt. And they don't really have things mapped out. But You can give me fucking Will Ospreay fucking 7 days out of the week. What good is it if it's not attached to a story? That's what they're missing.
Respectfully, of course. I want you not to think about story. I want you to think about purpose. If there's one thing I'll tell you, it's try to think of purpose. Why is this happening on my TV? How does it progress the character or a storyline that they are currently telling? That's what I want you to think. Because there's a lot of people and they say, oh, well, AEW's not doing storytelling. Look, I'm not trying to defend the company. I think they got a lot of flaws. As I've said earlier, it doesn't need to be said. But I think we got to look at the purpose of why something is happening on TV and how they could push forward. That's the issue that they have. Because they're telling some stories in their women's division. They're telling some stories right now with Anna Jay. And obviously, you know, they just did the thing.
Yeah, but bro, is it good story? That's the thing. Like nobody's refuting that AEW doesn't tell stories. But is it good story? There's no thought. It's just basic, hey, man, well, Anna Jay, you take, for example. Anna Jay, what is she doing on television? Mariah May and Mina, whatever her name is. Like, is it good?
But JD, hold on. This is where things get a little tricky. And again, I hate to use WWE as the example, but like, not every episode is going to be a huge banging storyline. But you got to remember how I was talking about the process of putting chicken on the grill. You got to let it marinate. You got to let it cook. You got to do all these things to make sure you're cooking to perfection. The problem with AEW goes back to the fact that there is not consistency follow-up every single week. It goes back to the word follow-up. So Anna Jay has to be involved in that. And then they have to follow it up next week with something to make people care about Anna Jay. So that way, to the point, Anna Jay is then inserted into a big storyline. Look at Deanna and Thunder Rosa. Perfect example. Deanna loses her championship opportunity. Now she's being a heel, doing some really cool stuff with Thunder Rosa. But the question is not, hey, can this lead to something good? Of course it can. If you want to make something good, you can. But are you going to follow up every single week on it? It's called continuity. It's the issue in AEW. We could talk about Britt Baker. She's fantastic. She's amazing. I think the women's division will benefit a lot when she comes back. But why not position people every single week to get to the point where you don't have to rely on some of this other talent? That's the solution. It's called continuity. It's called follow-up. It's called purpose, not storytelling. You don't need to have a banger episode every week with 10-star matches. But what you need to do is continue to evolve. Look at Drew McIntyre's career. In the last year and a half or whatever, this evolution of his character has become amazing. You talked about him and CM Punk being injured. People are loving it. Why? They're not wrestling, but it's character evolution. There's a purpose behind it. Drew McIntyre is an idiot, and, you know, he got cashed in on. Now he's got an issue with Punk for his own mistakes. There's purpose. Now look at it from the perspective of Liv Morgan. I'm not saying AEW should do the same thing as WWE, but it's every single week there's continuity to what is happening. That's what AEW is missing. That's the problem. Until that problem gets fixed, you will never be able to marinate. You'll never be able to cook anything on the grill. You got to let it marinate, brother. You got to let it cook. And every single week, they're not on it.
And like you say, like Deanna and Thunder Rosa, I mean, it doesn't need to be a 5-star story behind what they're doing. I get why they're doing it and the reason why it's happening. But then Tony Khan will put it on Rampage at like 10:45. Yeah. Like why? Like this is where they go wrong. Or they'll take Mariah May and do something on fucking on Rampage on Friday. Like I don't give a shit about Rampage. Like nothing should happen on Rampage at all. Yeah. So this is where it goes back to what you're saying, continuity. Dynamite into Collision into Dynamite. And if it's not happening along those two shows, with Dynamite being the A show and Collision being the B show, and everything happening on Dynamite first, then I don't really see a sense of, hey man, I should go out of my way and watch this.
Yeah,
it's a problem. They have a problem with continuity. They have a problem with priorities. But nobody's refuting that they don't tell stories. They do tell stories, but I mean, one week they'll tell a story and then they'll fucking do something else for the next 2-3 weeks, and then go back to what they were doing with Deanna Purrazzo. They'll take 2 weeks off, and then they'll tell the story again. Why?
Bloated roster, another issue. But it's fine because you can fix that. You can fix a lot of these issues. I think that's one thing I want people to take away, too. A lot of these issues that I'm pointing out and that you're pointing out, they're actually really easy fixes. It's I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about Tony Khan just having too much on his plate. But I want to see those structural issues to their format and the way that they are doing these things, because those changes pretty much fix everything. I will never refute AEW can't tell good stories. I think they got some good stuff on TV right now that I'm enjoying. The problem is, how do you follow up with it? The momentum after it. What are you doing to get us there? Some stories are marinating for weeks, and some stories are, oh shit, I forgot to let it thaw out.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
So MJF, we don't know when he's getting back to television. I hope it's soon, because he is definitely missed. Powerhouse Hobbs, he's going to be out of action for a while. He got injured in the match against Jon Moxley when Moxley put the IWGP World Championship on the line on Wednesday's Dynamite. He unfortunately suffered a legitimate knee injury. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reported that it's a significant injury that Hobbs is not expected back anytime soon. Was it worth it? Again, that's good. That's what I say. There's no continuity. Like one day, Jon Moxley wins the championship, and then the following Wednesday, Tony Khan's like, "Oh man, my guy's got the IWGP World Championship, a title that is just rich with history. We gotta get it on Dynamite, and let's put it on the line against Will Hobbs, because the Blackpool Combat Club just started a feud with the Don Callis family." I'm like, all right, well, how did this come about? So they tell a story with Don Callis saying that he called in a couple of favors. He knows the higher-ups over at New Japan, and he made it happen. Meanwhile, I mean, none of it really makes sense on the surface. You try to make sense of it. Match never really needed to take place, and now Will Hobbs, who I am very high on, is going to be out for like 6 months now because of a fucking torn ligament in his knee, I'm sure. They won't tell you what the injury is. Why? Was it worth it? I don't get it. Anyway.
Yeah, I like the fact that they had Don Callis on commentary kind of justify why this match was happening. I mean, it's not the strongest answer, but it's a logical answer, right? I like my wrestling to be logical and not insult my intelligence. Don Callis pulled some strings. I think my only gripe about this, obviously, he got injured. It sucks. Whenever a wrestler gets injured, it's a big thing on my channel. I talk about it all the time. Health before wealth. I don't care about any of this other shit. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, this match shouldn't have been the last match to happen. Also, I would have loved to see. I would have loved to seen them really push the needle forward for Blackpool Combat Club and Don Callis family. Obviously, the injury took place. I don't know if they had anything planned post match or something. But if this could be another strong story, a very good storyline, a very fun storyline where wrestlers can wrestle really well. Obviously, you had Ospreay and Danielson do their match at Dynasty. There's a lot of cool stuff that could come from this. I don't know what it would have been with the injury, but it just goes back to what we were saying earlier too. I didn't want the IWGP belt being in the main event over the world champion. But as far as the injury goes, I'm sure it plays a big role into this, and it might change some stuff. But as far as it being logical, I mean, it did make sense. It wasn't the strongest answer, but it is what it is. What can you do?
That was the biggest gripe I had with it. The fact that the IWGP championship was above the world champion, and Kyle Fletcher got a match against the champion when he hasn't gone out there and won a single match on AEW Dynamite since October 14th of 2023. Imagine that. Now he's out. So poor Will Hobbs. Hopefully he gets back soon, but it ain't looking good for him. Julia Hart, she's also out, and Fightful Select is also reporting that Julia may require surgery on an injury, although specifics on it weren't known at the time of reporting. She's not planned for any upcoming AEW television tapings as of right now. Julia has actually gotten a lot better. I don't think she did anything necessarily major with the TBS championship, but that title anyway, as soon as Mercedes got back and started teasing that she was going after that championship, I mean, it was only going right to Mercedes Moné anyway. So Julia, I hope she gets back. I think she's an integral part of the House of Black. I think her character work has been tremendous, coming from what she was doing with Brian Pillman and Griff Garris all those years ago to what she's transformed herself into. AEW, we talk about character development. We don't see a lot of it. Julia has actually been one of the very few performers in that company that has definitely had some character development. So props to Julia Hart on that. I don't know what you think of Julia and the rise of Julia so far. I know she's still very young. I think she's like 22 years old. I mean, this is just a minor setback. I have high hopes for her.
Yeah. I love her work. I think she's great. When they came and did Dynamite last time in Detroit, she had a match. And I mean, I just remember sitting there and being like really impressed because I was noticing at that time, I'm like, man, like she's really improved. And she's come a long way. Her character development is really good. Her wrestling skills have become very good. But also it kind of goes to show you, for all those people that say wrestlers don't need character, you know, maybe they don't need character, but personality, those elements, those, you know, it works for some people. And look at her being a cheerleader to being whatever the hell you want to call this. It's good. It's entertaining. And look, man, injury sucks. And I know you weren't talking too highly about her TBS championship. You don't feel like it did too much, but the TBS championship, from when it was on Jade Cargill to Julia Hart, I felt like they did so much with Jade holding that belt for so long. And with Julia Hart, I mean, it was kind of a lengthy run, but for the most part, I felt like she kind of kept it as a credible mid-card championship. Whereas like the TNT championship was kind of being like hot potatoed for a minute. Like this had stability, and she was the right person for it. I hope she comes back, and I hope that they look at her as somebody that, you know, gets to that next step, because that right there has actually been done correctly, in my opinion. The way they've handled her, I can't really argue that.
Now, how do you feel about Mercedes and the way that they've handled Mercedes so far? Before we get into the WWE Draft stuff, how do you feel about Mercedes? Because I honestly feel, and this may be a little tinfoil hattish, you know, a little conspiracy theory. I don't think I believe Tony when he says that Mercedes is still not medically cleared, and I feel like it's a bunch of bullshit. You know, debuting her in March and then not having her wrestle until May at Double or Nothing against Willow, who's now the TBS champion, just screams like, what the fuck are we doing here? You know, you've taken Mercedes and have taken her weakest aspects and put that on television. Wednesday was the first time in about a month and a half I said, that's the Mercedes that I know. Now, clearly they're setting up a heel turn against Willow, and the history of her and Willow dates back to last year when Mercedes got the broken ankle in the match with Willow for the New Japan Women's Strong Championship. But having her not wrestle after she's already gotten physical, like there's something that throws up a red flag in my honest opinion. What have you thought about Mercedes' run so far, how they've handled Mercedes? And I know everybody likes to throw the words game changer around. How can she be a game changer if you're going to wait 2 months on her getting in the ring when that's what she does best?
Can't be. Stop. I want people to stop looking at game changers, at new signings being game changers. Look, at the end of the day, when you leave WWE and go elsewhere and you have to have a different name, the reality is you're not going to be as popular as you were in WWE, right? I think a lot of people saw the value in Sasha Banks in that name, and that's obviously a thing that WWE does extremely well, is owning the names and the IPs or whatever. Mercedes as a talent will get very successful in AEW, and I think it's going to be a long-term project. I think, you know, this might not be popular. You might not agree, but I looked at WWE with Jade Cargill. When Jade Cargill came in, everybody's like, oh, she's not wrestling and she's in the Performance Center and this and that. But WWE, for the most part, found a way to keep Jade Cargill in the headlines, having people talk about her, going to general managers and negotiating her contract and stuff. It's obviously not the same exact situation with Mercedes, but they found a way for her to be on TV every week. So I don't have an expectation for her to be a game changer. I have an expectation that she's going to go in there and deliver some good content. Has everything been perfect? No. But I like the fact that she's going in there with Willow, somebody who I think if she is 100% cleared, I think they're going to have a badass match at Double or Nothing. Now, I don't want Mercedes to beat Willow. That's the issue here. If they have Mercedes beat Willow,
think they're bringing in Mercedes to lose her first match on pay-per-view?
She's got to turn heel, right?
She's already a heel.
No, I don't look at it as a full committed heel turn.
You don't think that promo on Wednesday was a heel promo?
I think it was, but I feel like in wrestling, wrestlers have heel tendencies and face tendencies.
I don't know.
Look at Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan cuts a heel promo, and sometimes it's like a babyface promo too. I'm just being honest. I think with Mercedes, they are teasing it. I think they're going in that direction, but I don't think they've fully committed to it. And if you had her lose to Willow, now you can actually have fun. You know, I don't want Willow to be a transitional champion either.
I mean, that'd be something if Willow beats Mercedes on her first night. I don't think. I know. I get it. I don't think Tony has the fucking balls to do something like that.
Yeah, he should have the fucking balls. Grow the fucking balls. How do you get people invested in your TV show? I'm so fucking tired of this thing,
The thing is, a lot of people are so high on Willow. How many people in the fucking community on Twitter have said Willow could be the face of the division? There's your opportunity. Now, I don't think it's gonna. I just don't see it. But I mean, if you're gonna take that chance, I mean, there'd be a different side of respect from me to AEW if they actually pull the trigger on that one. I just don't see it happening.
I genuinely think they should. Willow is incredibly talented. She's got a very bubbly personality. When you see her on TV, she's very positive. That energy is contagious. This would be the coolest way to have her. I mean, you have her go over. You give her a little bit of a lengthy reign. Mercedes can turn heel officially, like full on post-match beatdown type of shit, and you fully commit to it. And then eventually you could have Mercedes cheat to win. Dude, listen, people are so quick to say wins and losses matter. But let's be real. Mercedes Varnado is not being buried at all in the slightest if she lost to Willow. In fact, not only would she be putting over Willow, but you're putting over your women's division. Like that, you're going to fucking shake up the women's division. People will get excited. I'm just saying, it's not a bad idea. You have Mercedes lose. It could be a fluke. It could be whatever. I mean, I prefer that it's clean. But you have Willow go over, Mercedes snaps, and now go all in.
Listen,
literally.
We'll go with what you said before, not too long ago. Continuity. Play off the fact that Mercedes was attacked. Who was the one that attacked her? Boom. The one that attacked her ruins her from winning the TBS championship at Double or Nothing, and then you can move Mercedes on to something else against, whoever attacked her in a grudge match, and Willow gets that victory over Mercedes. Simple. So you could justify Mercedes losing and then continue a storyline there while Willow gets the big win over their biggest star. I mean, it works. I don't see it happening, but it works.
I'm not saying I don't see it happening either, but...
And the problem with Mercedes is, though, I mean, they basically have taken a Sasha Banks cosplay from WWE and applied that to AEW television, and she's watching TV sideways like she watched TV on Monday Night Raw all those years under Vince McMahon, and she's cutting promos like she's reading off of a script and nothing sounds natural. It's like, where's the Mercedes that I know exists in that heart? Like, where is that? Like, you come to AEW where there's no restrictions on promos, they're bullet points. They allow you to go out there and be you. I haven't seen Mercedes yet. That's what I said. Wednesday was the first time I felt like we seen just a little inkling of who Mercedes really is. Like, we haven't seen that yet. And I feel like they've kind of botched her already, but I'm not really going to make any judgments yet until we get her in the ring so she really makes a difference, because that's where she's going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah, I think if you look at it from my perspective of, okay, she loses to Willow and turns heel, for example, now the fun really begins. Now I think people will really care about it. I think it's so easy for her to come in and cut a couple promos and she's watching the screen and whatever. But when you turn heel, if you stay consistent with it and the continuity is there and she's there every single week, I mean, let's just be real. The women's division at this point, they're starting to cook up some storylines. Serena Deeb's now in the mix. Eventually Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter turn up and return. There's a lot of things that they can do, but you need a very strong storyline to get there. This is the way to do it. And I think it corrects everything that has happened thus far. But again, I don't want to speculate too on whether she's cleared or not, but I think if she's not cleared and she will be cleared, there you go. You have money written all over it. Not only do you have a massive storyline for the men, but now you have a massive storyline for the women. That might even be two massive storylines, because we'll see what happens with the World Women's Championship as well. Again, we got to fix that structure, that foundation issue that AEW has, and it's got to be done from top to bottom of the show. This would be a really good way to get there.
I agree. Shifting gears from AEW, guys, to the WWE. We just concluded the 2024 draft, and the draft Friday was very lackluster. Probably one of the most boring nights of the draft that I've ever witnessed. Monday was a hell of a lot better and really got me excited about the future of Monday Night Raw, because Monday Night Raw is absolutely stacked. So the draft rules this year, there was one thing that was changed, And it was a logical change that I don't really know why the previous administration didn't think of it. On SmackDown, there was 4 rounds, 16 picks in total. On Raw, there were 6 rounds and 24 total picks. Champions on each brand were protected. So WWE came out with all these new fancy shiny belts. The World Heavyweight Championships on Monday Night Raw and the WWE Championships on SmackDown. No reason to switch brands and convolute things even further. One set stays on Raw, the other set stays on SmackDown. I love it. It works, and it's simple. The Women's Tag Team Championships, they don't fall into that protection category. They are eligible. SmackDown picked first on Friday. Raw picked first on Monday. Now, Angle, I'll start with you. I know I just said Friday was lame. Monday was a lot better. I'm excited about the future of Monday Night Raw. Their mid-card is absolutely fucking loaded. What did you think of the overall draft? Are you excited about the rosters locking on Monday, going after Backlash?
Yes and no. I mean, JD, listen, man, I get happy when I ask for something. I tweet about it, and I'm like, man, this is what I want to see, right? And I feel like WWE delivered on some of those things. The more sports-based presentation, the war rooms, the way they did the NXT call-ups. But I think the big problem with the draft, honestly, is that it's on Monday and Friday. Like, I want to see the draft go away from this format completely. And I want to see them literally just watch an episode of the NBA draft, and on a random Thursday night or a Wednesday night or Tuesday night or some shit when, you know, wrestling isn't on, I want them to go live on Peacock, Triple H being the fucking commissioner. I want him to stand there like he's Adam Silver or Roger Goodell, and I want him to do all the picks himself. That's what I want. The draft, look, man, the draft, there's a formula, there's a formulaic issue here because the draft is existing members of Raw and SmackDown. Well, that's weird. Didn't they sign a contract to be on Raw? Why all of a sudden their contract is, you know, there's flaws. There's holes in this. So what I want to do is completely change it where implement a trade deadline, right? Some of these rosters kind of stayed the same. The top stars, you know, one thing I loved was the champions were protected. But with those picks being protected, that means the roster also didn't shake up as much as far as the top stars go. Implement a trade deadline. Make it December every year. Because you got to balance out the rosters. Feuds are going to happen, and it's going to get a little stale. I want to see them kind of go away from this format that they have, honestly. Like, if I had a message to Triple H, it's don't be dumb. Go and copy the NBA and NFL. These guys draft. I just watched the NFL draft. It was in Detroit. Phenomenal. We never get anything like this in Detroit. The Detroit Lions have sucked for my entire lifetime. We finally make the playoffs. We get the draft. And we got the commissioner standing up there making these picks. People grab their jersey. They take the picture, right? Then you have analysts. You have the interviews. You have this reaction from all these other insiders. And then the football player from college is now talking and doing an interview, and people are starting to get to know them. Imagine if that was done in pro wrestling. Like, imagine, who was it that got picked after Raw? Was it Dijak? Yeah, Dijak got picked after Raw. What does that tell me? It tells me he wasn't good enough to be on TV for his draft pick. But imagine if you had one night for 3 hours, 3 minutes. You know, each pick is individual. Raw is, you know, they got to deliberate on who they want to pick. SmackDown's got to deliberate on who they want to pick. Like, you got to change the format, man. Raw definitely won the draft. Monday Night Raw was a lot better than SmackDown. But all of this could be better if they just simply stop doing it on Mondays and Fridays. Treat it like a real sport in that case. And
you got me fucking excited about that concept, man. I mean, I'd sit home on a random Thursday night, planted on my couch with a nice beer, watching the fucking WWE Draft. Move away from Raw and SmackDown. Not overly convoluting the shows and making the shows feel unimportant. They just put the draft picks and nothing matches on Friday, and draft picks and nothing matches on Monday that don't have any real rhyme or reason. They're just there because we have a fucking pay-per-view on Saturday afternoon. Like, I get it. Like, I don't know why that wasn't done now. I don't know if that's in the pipeline or not. I don't know if they're going to end up changing it. They may get rid of the draft completely. We don't know. But I don't know why they haven't gone back to that or something along those lines. Give it a real sports feel. I mean, they've changed with Lee Fitting doing the whole fucking production side of things. Why not go the extra mile and do something like that? Maybe they're not set up for something like that yet. I don't know, but I love that idea. Absolutely love it.
Well, you got to think too. Leaf fitting comes in. They start changing it where it's more sports based. You know, these WWE superstars are walking into the arena. They're in their suits. They're in like fashionable clothes. They got their suitcases. They're walking up. You see the NXT roster members. They're sitting there getting excited for a legitimate call up. Those reactions are cool, man. They added some cool elements this year. When I saw Blair Davenport get drafted and I saw her reaction as somebody who used to watch her as B. Priestley,
yeah,
I was like, fuck yeah. Like, this is what I'm excited about. But imagine if you had B. Priestley get called up to the stage and she's taking a photo with Triple H. He's doing his typical finger point. She's holding a SmackDown shirt. And then right after that, for those who don't watch NXT, Jackie Redmond's on the side and she goes, well, by the way, while Raw is on the clock for 3 minutes or whatever it is, Jackie Redmond's talking to Blair Davenport. Blair, what can people expect from you? And she's talking about her character. She's talking about her journey to get here and all these different things. Man, if you had a dedicated night to this, your fans are going to become a little bit more acclimated to who these draft picks are, why they should care about these draft picks. And by the way, you have some douchebag that comes and attacks her, right? You have a dickhead, you have a piece of shit who's a heel come and attack Blair Davenport while she's doing her interview. Wow, you just used this moment to set up a storyline for next week. Come on, dude. You could do a lot of cool shit with this draft, but the problem is when you're trying to get it all squeezed in and Stephanie McMahon is announcing 4 picks at a time, it just, to me, it doesn't feel like a draft. To me, it just feels like
a ratings ploy.
Hey, we're shaking up the roster. Here you go.
It's a ratings ploy. That's all they do it for. They do it as a way to generate ratings or interest in the shows because there's nothing going on with the post-WrestleMania lull, and they use it to fucking sell tickets. I mean, it's stupid. Meanwhile, you got a whole performance center that's operational down there in Orlando, Winter Park, Florida, and that would be the perfect setting for it. I mean, I hope to God that they do something like that because something desperately needs to change. But I mean, we could sit here and talk all night about what needs to change. We got the rosters that we needed. We got the shakeup that we wanted. SmackDown saw the night one of the draft. Bianca Belair was the first pick on SmackDown. She stays on SmackDown. Jey Uso goes to Raw. Carmelo Hayes gets called up from NXT. It was about fucking time. He was ready for a call-up last year, but they kept him down on NXT because they wanted him to aid in getting Trick Williams to where he is, and that was a successful venture. Trick Williams is the world champion down in NXT now, so good on Carmelo Hayes. He stayed down there for his friend, and now he gets the call up to SmackDown. Seth Rollins stays on Raw. We'll start with Carmelo Hayes. I know you are a fan of the current NXT. Me, not so much. I got my problems with it, but I do dabble in it and watch it periodically through clips on YouTube. Carmelo Hayes, big fan. Dijak, big fan. Tony D, big fan. Ilya, big fan. I mean, they got some core, like, level black and gold down there talent. Carmelo Hayes was one of them. How do you feel he's going to do on SmackDown?
JD, mark my words.
The world is his oyster, basically.
Oh, he's going to be cooking. I mean, look, dude, he just showed out against Cody Rhodes. And,
you mean to tell me you don't have a problem with that, but we had a problem with Kyle Fletcher and Swerve Strickland on Wednesday, man. You know the comparisons there that everybody made.
Oh, everybody wants to make the comparison. Okay, cool. Again, there's something called follow-up. Carmelo Hayes has been on SmackDown before. He just got drafted. He's basically in a showcase match against Cody Rhodes. He showed up, had the ability to impress. Did he beat Cody Rhodes? No. But do I have more faith in WWE and how they follow up with Carmelo Hayes? Absolutely. It's a little bit different when, historically speaking, AEW hasn't showed me that. So I just got to be real. It is what it is. It's called follow-up. It's called continuity. And Carmelo Hayes is a huge fucking star just waiting for – I mean, look, there's a reason why when you watch NXT 2.0 and then now it's 3.0 or whatever, there is a reason why I would watch it because I've always been a big fan of 2012, 2013, 2014 NXT. You have an idea. I used to watch Liaki in FCW, and now he's the tribal chief, right? I see people's progression. When I see Carmelo Hayes, when I see Braun Breaker, I don't think about what they're going to evolve to. I think they got it now. So for me, I look at Carmelo Hayes and getting that stamp and getting that draft moment. And then they released the clip, by the way, of him talking, getting the call from Nick Aldis.
Yep, I saw it.
Beautiful. Like, I love that. Like, that's what you should be doing. He feels like a big deal. He's ready to go. No
We
questions
could see him. I know the secondary title on SmackDown is Logan Paul on that U.S. title because he was protected. I do have a feeling that they're probably going to venture off and do Logan Paul versus LA Knight at SummerSlam in Cleveland. That's my prediction. I could see Carmelo Hayes factoring into that secondary title, that U.S. title, somewhere down the line this year. But he did shoot his shot on Friday. He did wrestle Cody. It wasn't anything all that special, but the fact that he was in there against the guy who just ended a 1,400-day title reign, I mean, it's pretty damn good night for Carmelo Hayes. Seth Rollins is on Raw. He's staying there, and he was drafted, but others who are injured were not drafted. So I think they I don't know the time frame for his injury, but the end of it all is Rollins is staying on the same show as his wife. So that's why he's staying on Raw. There's no reason to move him over to SmackDown. So that was round one. Round two, SmackDown got Randy Orton and Nia Jax. Raw gets Braun Breaker and Liv Morgan. Braun Breaker goes to Raw after they made him a focal point on SmackDown, signing a SmackDown deal. He got drafted to Raw. That's another guy I'm high on. Haven't been all that pleased with the presentation. I know he's a beast. I know he's a monster. They want to highlight his strength, his agility, his speed. But less Goldberg, more Braun Breaker, because if there's one thing I did realize when I did watch NXT for the amount of time I did, Braun Breaker's a damn good pro wrestler. And to watch him grow over the last 3 years, to basically come from who the fuck is this guy to what he is now, I love what he's doing. So he factors into a stacked mid-card on Monday night, and I'm very excited to see where he goes. What do you think of him?
Love him. It's crazy because as somebody who watches NXT, my reaction to him and Baron Corbin tag teaming was like, what the fuck? And now it actually got to the point where I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't want you to do the Ryback treatment. I don't want him to just squash matches all the time. Like, I want him to be an integral part of the show. I was hoping that him and Baron Corbin would get drafted together because I'm like, it would actually be a really fun thing. It's been working for them. So keep them as a tag team, and then eventually Braun Breaker ventures off into a singles run when that window of opportunity is there. I think that's my big concern here is that WWE is just like AEW. There's a lot of people on the roster, and obviously WWE has a little bit more TV time on Monday nights, but I don't want them to just rush somebody's success and force them down your throat because these guys are good. And Braun Breaker specifically, don't do the typical thing that you always do with these guys. Right. So I'm excited for him. I think he's going to fit in very well. I thought it was kind of weird that, he signed as a free agent with SmackDown. And then all of a sudden, like Nick Aldis didn't lock him down for a good enough contract.
No, I don't know, a couple of weeks. I don't know what type of contract he was handing out. But I listen, I would have kept him and Corbin together. I'm not the biggest Corbin guy, but I recognize when someone works their fucking ass off. And Corbin has worked his ass off to reinvent himself. He got the ability to try new things and go back to what worked for him. And he met Braun Breaker and they just seemingly gelled. And I don't know where Braun Breaker is going to fit in on the main roster. I don't know how fast he's going to be thrusted up the card. But the one glaring thing, even after the draft, even with Triple H in charge, is those tag team divisions. I don't think there really is enough depth in either division to really call it a division or to necessitate a brand overall WWE that has two separate rosters where we need two tag team championships. I would have absolutely kept Corbin and Braun Breaker together. There's no reason why they also can't do singles as well as the tag team. So I think that's a missed opportunity there. It would have given them a little bit more reason because I do think that Corbin's going to suffer a little bit. I do think Braun Breaker's going to get off to a slow start and they're really just going to go formulaic with him, do the Goldberg route, squash matches here and showcase what he's all about. But I think them together is a missed opportunity. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at Imperium just kicking out Giovanni Vinci, like that's the big thing, right? But one thing that I do trust Triple H with a little bit more is looking at Bronson Reed, right? Bronson Reed's kind of been in that upper mid-card, upper mid-card, competing for the IC title. Now he's attacking Sami Zayn backstage. He's having bangers with Ivar and like this crop of talent. I just want to see Braun Breaker in that group and just let it evolve over time, let it marinate. And then when the time is ready, when Chad Gable has already won the IC title and, some of these other guys get that opportunity, just keep him on TV every week. Let him do his thing. It doesn't have to be 2-minute matches all the time. Let him have some mid-card storylines. And then when that opportunity is there, propel him to the IC title. That's what I want. The tag team thing, it's a missed opportunity because I was like, you don't have to rush him in that case.
Yeah.
You know, Imperium's gone. Him and Baron Corbin honestly brought the best out of each other. Their personalities. I was not for it. As a person who watched NXT, I was like, what the fuck? And just seeing how it worked over time and the crowd loved it. And it saved Baron Corbin's career in a way, but it also saved Braun Breaker's career because it was almost like, hey, you haven't been called up yet. You haven't been called up yet. Like, what's the plan? And they found a way to mix it up and freshen it up and make it fun. So the fact that they're on separate brands was a very odd choice, but it looks like WWE has a plan for them and hopefully it works out. It's hard to judge it until it happens, but I'm sure we'll have a different opinion 6-7 months from now. And that's all I could really say. Yeah,
regardless, he's going to have he's a bright future for sure. I'm most excited about him and Ilya Dragunov on Monday Night Raw for sure. Nia Jax, Liv Morgan, those are the ladies that flip shows. They were on Monday Night Raw last night. Liv beat Nia to basically prove to Becky that she deserves a championship match, and Nia is going to factor into the Women's Championship on SmackDown. Why Nia Jax was drafted above LA Knight and AJ Styles, I don't know. But round 3, SmackDown gets LA Knight and the Bloodline, all of the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, who is now MFT motherfucking Tonga, and Paul Heyman. Sheamus and Ricochet stay on Raw. They get drafted and they do not move off of their brand. Round 4, AJ and Andrade get drafted to SmackDown. AJ stays on SmackDown. Andrade's moving over from Raw. And Raw keeps Alpha Academy and also drafts Kiana James, which was the first big surprise of Friday night's draft. She got drafted in round 4 there, the last pick of the night. I'm not too big on Kiana James, but I do love someone that, you know, is getting an opportunity like Kiana James, Ango. And I feel like I mentioned this on Friday when I talked about her. She wrestles stiff. She doesn't go in there and flail around. She doesn't go in there and fucking care about her hair being messed up or breaking a fingernail, or she's afraid to take a bump like Jade Cargill's afraid to take a bump. Kiana James fucking throws herself around and she bumps around in there, man. That is something I can appreciate. So I hope that they actually have a plan for her because she's worked her ass off as well. She was in the beginning stages of that 2.0, and over the last 3 years, she's been a featured female on that roster, and now she's getting an opportunity. I hope they got a plan for her.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people forget that she used to be on AEW Dark. Her and Tesha Price, a.k.a. Fallon Henley, both had experience in AEW. AEW clearly didn't see something in them. Not sure why. They come to WWE. They get the over-the-top character. They kind of settle down a little bit. And I think once you start to see her on TV, you're like, okay, she could do the character thing. She's not bad in the ring. She's got personality. When she got picked, honestly, I thought, like, I was kind of shocked because it's one of those surprise call-ups. It wasn't rumored or anything like that.
No.
Look, you need to freshen up that women's division on Raw. And I feel like that was actually one thing that they did pretty well with. Now, is she just going to sit in the background and do, like, nothing?
Basically be Indy Hartwell?
I mean, Indy Hartwell's been doing they've been teasing the stuff with her and Candice, you know, the character change and stuff. It's been a little bit of a slow burn. It hasn't been as impactful on TV. But if she's on TV and she's involved, kind of like how Tiffany Stratton has been used since her call up, I think that's the perfect way to get her going, get people familiarized with her, and from there, see what happens. But you gotta freshen up that women's division. And I love Becky as a champion. I love Rhea as a champion. I love the idea of Liv as a champion. But I want to see some new faces, right? So they don't have a mid-card women's champion. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to introduce it at some point. And put her in some good matches and some good feuds. Don't just let her be another wrestler that's just kind of chilling. You know, don't let her get comfortable.
Tegan Nox is a better example. Tegan Nox did nothing since getting called up.
And I get confused by it because it's like you put her on TV against Becky Lynch and let her have a decent match, good match, whatever. It was fine. You let her do that. She loses. And it's like Becky's putting people on when she's holding that NXT Women's Championship, when she was doing those matches on Raw. And those are showcase matches. That's Triple H basically telling everybody, hey, look, Becky's going to go up against this new face. It's a fresh face. These are some of the people we're going to be putting on TV every week. Did it do anything for Tegan? No. Now she's going to go to SmackDown, and I don't expect them to do anything with her. It's tough. It's very tough. I feel like when you look at the men's mid card and the men's main event scene, they've done a really good job of building them up. And then when you look at the women's roster, not as much effort goes into it. You know, Jade and Bailey and Bianca and Asuka and Io Sky and, you know, Damage Control, all that stuff, cool. But then there's not much happening underneath. And I know you don't watch NXT, JD, but I highly suggest you look at the way Shawn Michaels books women's.
Oh, I hear about it. I see it. I mean, he does as good of a job as anybody. Kiana James was definitely a standout to me there. I loved Bea Priestley, Blair Davenport. I know what she was capable of down there. I'm a big fan of Sol Ruca. I'm a big fan of Nikita Lyons. She's just very injury prone. Big fan of Roxanne Perez. There's a lot of good to come out of NXT. Kiana James was definitely somebody that caught my eye. I do hope that they have a plan. So hopefully she does well for herself on Monday nights. AJ staying on SmackDown because I do think the Cody feud is going to be more than one match. I do think that it extends past Backlash. Cody right now is probably going to be looking at the roster, going to be looking at a very difficult time to find some top tier opponents on Friday night. LA Knight staying over there because I do think that they're headed towards LA Knight and Logan Paul at SummerSlam. And then the Bloodline obviously staying over there because that's their thing. And that is what's basically going to be carrying the company moving forward on Friday night. We go to Monday. Actually, before we get to Monday, there were some additional picks after Friday night. Baron Corbin, the OC, Cedric Alexander, and Ashante Adonis. They get picked to go to SmackDown. Raw gets Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Ivar, Alba Fire, and Isla Dawn. So there's a lot of ladies on the Monday Night Raw side, and like Ango said, I think that Triple H did a fantastic job of really addressing a major problem in the company, and that was the depth of the women's division on Monday night. So he did try and aid that for sure coming out of Friday. Going into night 2, which was last night, round 1 saw Raw get Imperium and Damage Control. Going back to what we said about the ladies, they're getting all Damage Control Raw. Asuka, Kyrie, Io, and Dakota. So that's a loaded roster just with that one group alone. Imperium is Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser. SmackDown gets Jade and Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens right now is teaming with Randy Orton. He's battling the Bloodline, so it makes sense for him to stay over there. Jade is probably going to end up winning the tag team titles with Bianca Belair at Backlash against Damage Control. So she is staying over on SmackDown. No surprises there. How do you feel about Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser booting Vinci out of the group? It took me by surprise, and I know the rumor is, they'll probably add Ilya Dragunov to the group. What do you make of Imperium? Because like you mentioned before, they did get rid of, in my honest opinion, probably the best bell-to-bell tag team in the entire company.
Yeah. It's tough, man. I like Giovanni Vinci. I do. I know he doesn't have the charisma or the character work like Ludwig and Gunther, but I think he's very talented. So I'm curious to see if Triple H utilizes him kind of the way he was utilized in NXT 2.0 with that character. But let's be real. Like Ilya Dragunov needs to go up into the main roster and make an impact. If you're going to have Braun Breaker squash everybody, right? He's squashing everybody. Are you going to do the same thing with Ilya Dragunov every week? No. You put Ilya Dragunov as a part of Imperium and long-term storyline, just like every other faction. We're seeing the ripples of the Judgment Day, and then like we saw with the Bloodline and every other group, Imperium break up, and we finally get that banger-ass match between Ilya Dragunov and Gunther, right? He's part of the group. He replaces Giovanni Vinci, and I mean, God bless them, dude. Good luck. Hopefully it all works out because Ludwig could be a very serious singles player in WWE. And we all know Ilya is going to do the same, and we know Gunther is going to do the same. I hate to use the comparison to the Shield, but we all knew when we saw the Shield, each guy was going to be very successful singles guys. You put in Ilya in there, you don't have to rush it, and eventually all three are going to be very successful as singles guys. So I'm for it, man. I'm for it. I hope they have some plan for Giovanni Vinci. The fact that he didn't get drafted on TV and it was like after the show doesn't seem like it's looking too good for him. But hey, at least Ilya's on Raw. So.
Hey, listen, Vinci's a fantastic professional wrestler. And I actually quite enjoyed his gimmick when I was watching NXT 2.0, and then all of a sudden I stopped watching it. I thought he did some great work. I mean, it was a little cheesy, but characters, that's what they are known for down there, developing some characters. And that is exactly what I think they're going to end up doing with him on Friday nights. Where he factors in to SmackDown plans, I don't know. But I do think, like you said, Ilya in Imperium, keep an eye on Bash in Berlin for all of that to kind of maybe come to a head. So Gunther, I mentioned this last night. A lot of people are like, oh, Gunther's going to win the World Championship. I was on that trajectory as well, but I feel like Gunther right now, why rush him to a World Championship when look at all the fucking roster that they added around him? I mean, does he need a World Championship right now when we got Drew McIntyre, who's probably odds-on favorite to get that championship back? Then we're talking about Punk. Rollins is going to come back. I said, let's wait on Gunther. Let's wait on Gunther. You know, we got the King of the Ring coming up. He's an odds-on favorite to win it. I'm actually going with Drew McIntyre to win King of the Ring. I say, let's wait on Gunther winning the World Championship, because right now, the way that SmackDown's looking, Cody doesn't have any real clear-cut opponent outside Randy Orton. We could see that. I wouldn't rush that either. But I feel like Gunther winning the Royal Rumble, thinking ahead, and challenging Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania is a solid direction to go. What do you think about Gunther's plans right now and him getting a World Championship?
Well, you don't have to rush anything. This is why I love general managers, and this is the reason why I love the idea of a trade deadline. If Gunther is on Raw, he dropped his IC title, goes back to winning and being dominant, and he's not being given an opportunity at the World Championship, and now he has issues with the GM, Adam Pearce. He should walk into Adam Pearce's office and demand a trade. Demand a trade. Hey, I'm not showing up to work anymore. I demand a trade. Let him pull a freaking all these guys in the NBA do it, bro. Have him do it. You're not giving me the World Championship opportunity. I demand a trade. Okay, he gets traded to SmackDown. Somebody goes to Raw. Gunther does not get traded with Ilya and Ludwig Kaiser. He goes off to SmackDown. Nick Aldis eventually gives him an opportunity at the belt. You could do some shit like that.
We've seen trades before. They traded Rey Mysterio to SmackDown because he wanted off the same brand as Dominic. They traded Rey Mysterio for Baron Corbin.
Yeah, but they can't do this whole bullshit thing, JD, where they like, oh, we're going to tell you who we traded for in 2 weeks. No. Have the fucking trade done right then and there.
Well, that played into the whole Sammy and Kevin Owens storyline, though.
Yeah. But that whole thing of making you wait or whatever, I don't like that. You know, just, hey, here's the trade. Like, you want to add those sports elements with Lee Fitting in the company. Imagine if Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce have a segment at a pay-per-view backstage where they shake hands and say, hey, we'll announce it on Monday. Now here they are announcing the trade. And then, by the way, you have wrestlers getting pissed that they're being traded. Like a guy like Gunther gets excited because he demands the trade, but everybody else who gets traded as part of the trade, they're upset because, hey, what the fuck? You didn't tell me. You know, it's part of your character. It's so crazy, JD. This is crazy. It's so easy. It's so effective. It takes 30 seconds.
I know.
Gunther walks into the office. I want a championship match. I deserve it. I'm king of the ring. I'm this. I'm that. You know? Adam Pearce now has to be a little bit strict. Say, nope, go win Money in the Bank or go win the Royal Rumble. And Gunther's like, nah, I had enough. I demand. You know, I'm not saying like that's the exact way they have to do it, but imagine if they had that type of element to their show. And by the way, you can't do any more trades because there's a trade deadline in December. Oh, and now you're keeping the rosters fresh, and Cody needs more opponents. So this is how you do it.
I wish they had a little bit more fun as the fans have more fun. I feel like the fans have more fun on WWE 2K in their universe mode than WWE actually has with their legitimate roster. It's ridiculous. But
and
yes,
like I said, it's all logical if you want to be logical about it, and you don't have to take up too much TV time. It's a quick solution. It keeps things fresh, and it adds a little bit of mystery, because what if you're going through getting traded for Randy Orton? Randy Orton's like, yo, like, I'm not happy about this. Now Randy Orton has a reason to go to Raw, be upset about it, show a little bit more character. People kind of resonate with him, and heel turn. RKO is Adam Pearce. I don't know. I'm going off a little bit. But
listen, it's a very good concept, and it brings back the idea of real sports presentation. So you got me on board with that. I don't know why they don't do it, but yeah. CM Punk, round 2. He is staying on Raw. Clearly, he's not going anywhere. He's in the middle of a feud with Drew McIntyre, so it wouldn't have made sense to move him. He's injured, and Rollins is injured. They got drafted. Rhea Ripley was not drafted, just to give you guys some context. Lots of injuries But some people were drafted, others were not. So Punk was one of those injured who was drafted. Roman Reigns rescinded his draft pick. He removed himself from the draft pool, so he wasn't drafted. SmackDown's getting the Pride. Bobby Lashley, Street Profits, and B-Fab. Raw gets Braun Strowman, and Tiffany Stratton stays on SmackDown. Braun Strowman returned last night. He was actually on TV. He looked great. Not a big fan of Braun Strowman. I don't really care to see Braun Strowman in this current iteration. I don't know what they're doing with Uncle Howdy or the Wyatt 4 or the Wyatt 6 or how many Wyatts are coming back. I know there's a rumor that Eric Rowan's coming back, a rumor that Alexa Bliss is going to be joining them. I'd like to see Braun Strowman a part of that universe if that is the plan, but we will have to wait and see how all that plays out. What'd you think of Braun Strowman last night? I thought he looked pretty good.
Looks good, man. I'm glad he's healthy. I think it was like a neck fusion surgery or something that he had, or
yes,
pretty serious injury, and he looks in phenomenal shape. I've been talking about it on my channel for a while about the idea of him, Rowan, Bo Dallas, Alexa Bliss, and Joe Gacy. They all have ties to Bray Wyatt. It could work very well for the Wyatt 6. And you don't have to have the pressure of Braun Strowman wrestling each and every week, high-risk matches. Could kind of do the tag team thing. And then, kind of going back to like Imperium's tag team division, Imperium breaking up from the tag team division. Now you have another tag team potentially in the mix. Or if you want, you could do the Ricochet Braun Strowman thing. I think that would be kind of dumb, but you could always revisit that if you want. He looks good though. I'm glad he's back. Don't want to see him forced down the main event scene, but I want to see him on TV in big storylines. So
yeah, fans pop for him. He generates that excitement. He's explosive. So Strowman's back on Raw. Tiffany Stratton, she will be factoring into the World Championship title picture over on SmackDown. She is definitely an odds-on favorite to win the ladies' Money in the Bank whenever that happens in Toronto. So we will see what happens with her. Huge upside to Tiffany Stratton, and she will be a star on that show in that division. Don't know where Charlotte's going to end up. It's just a natural progression that they'll probably end up heading towards a collision between each other. So we'll see what happens there. Charlotte also was not a part of the draft pool, but I'm assuming she'll end up on SmackDown with Andrade. So that's going to be the situation there. Round 3, Raw gets the LWO. That's Rey Mysterio, Carlito, who was the one who turned heel on Friday. Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, Dragon Lee, and Zelina Vega. They're going to Raw. And SmackDown keeps Legado, Santos, Angel, Berto, and Elektra Lopez. I thought this was the biggest win of the entire draft because 9 months of this was really weighing on my patience. So we actually have them split, which is a great deal. So lots of talent there. Santos is great. Rey is still great. I'm big on Dragon Lee. I love the tag team of Berto and Angel. I just wish they put some fucking momentum behind them. And Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro, also very good. I don't know why there's no momentum behind them. Give them some fucking dialogue. Give them some characters. Give them something to sink their teeth into. You got 2 great tag teams there. Hopefully they make the most of it. Raw gets Drew McIntyre, and Shinsuke Nakamura goes to SmackDown, which is a very bizarre decision. I said this on my show last night, Ango. I felt like Nakamura, with what he's done and what they've expended out of him on the main roster, we've seen it. We've seen everything that we could out of Nakamura. I don't know why they didn't move him back down to NXT.
Yeah, he's just getting the bag at this point. He's showing up to work, getting the bag, doing what he's supposed to be doing. It's challenging, man, because we want all these new faces to get pushed and all these people to win and certain people, and they don't really have these veterans that could put over other people. So now Shinsuke has kind of taken that role. I'm always going to question Shinsuke's WWE run after NXT or after WrestleMania 34, I think it was, with AJ or something like that. I don't know. But
yeah, you're going that far. I question his fucking run after he lost to Jinder Mahal.
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I love Shinsuke. I love his presentation. It's crazy because I loved what they were doing with him and Cody, but I don't feel like he ever rebounded from that. So look, I'm just trying to be honest here. I don't look at Shinsuke on SmackDown as a good thing. I think, you're going to try to put over these guys and Santos and Carmelo Hayes and all these guys are just going to get wins over Shinsuke. And I don't think it's good, but they need somebody. JD, they need somebody to fill that role and to have people get put over. And I hate that it has to be Shinsuke.
Listen, man, get ready for the Baron Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura feud that never ends, or Nakamura versus Carmelo Hayes, man. You know it's coming.
Yeah, see, like I can't listen. I'll be the first person as soon as that happens, if it does happen. Like I swear to God, like that's not, you cannot justify that.
No.
You can't justify that because Shinsuke Nakamura is literally having zero value on TV. Like I said, since Cody, he lost what, 3-4 times to Cody, and after that, has he won?
No, remember he was in the feud with Rollins too. They just used him for what, 2 pay-per-views in a row with Rollins. They lost both of them.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I love Shinsuke. Going to NXT would have been fine. I don't know.
And like you said, he's surfing. He lives in Orlando with his family, and he's getting the bag. What else does he need? Why does he need to break his body? He don't.
Yeah, but it just sucks because I like the guy. You know?
I know. Round 4, Raw gets Judgment Day. They move over from SmackDown. It's all of Judgment Day. I'm thinking the fucking Final Testament. Judgment Day. Finn Balor. Damian Priest stays on Raw because of the World Championship. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, JD McDonough, and Dominic Mysterio. Rhea Ripley was not a part of the draft pool, but I'm assuming she stays because, she's got a feud with Liv Morgan, and she wants the championship back that she never lost. So a lot of people were like, well, how do you know Rhea Ripley's going to Raw, not to SmackDown? Oh, well, I just watched the fucking show, dummy. Seriously. So she's going back to Raw. They're staying on Raw. SmackDown gets Naomi. I felt like she could have probably benefited from a move to Raw. Raw gets Ilya Dragunov, and SmackDown gets Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. Not really exciting there, but Ilya Dragunov, we discussed him a little bit earlier. That's one to keep an eye on. And if you don't know what you're getting with Ilya, not going to take too long for you to jump on board with what the Mad Dragon is going to bring to the table. He is going to be an absolute, I hate the words game changer, because I know I get zinged a lot for using it, but Jesus Christ, this guy is he's gonna tear Monday Night Raw to shreds. I can't wait to see it, especially with the mid card and the secondary title there, the Intercontinental Championship, the division that they've lined up. It's going to be unbelievable. Round 5 gets the Final Testament. That's Karrion Kross, AOP, and all other parties that are involved there, Paul Ellering and Scarlett. SmackDown gets Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. That is something that I expected because they didn't win the tag team championships after several tries on Monday night. And it makes me question if they're going to use them in that role on SmackDown, or Ango, they're teasing something with Ciampa possibly splitting from Gargano, or maybe they just both go heel, which I don't really care for heel Johnny Gargano, but I do love heel Ciampa. And if there's one thing I know, Triple H loves both guys, and the most success that they had was when they were polar opposites of each other on Black and Gold. Maybe Triple H is doing that. What do you make of that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I love the character stuff that they've been doing. Obviously, with Ciampa, when they lost to Awesome Truth, that was like a really pivotal moment for them because now it created a little bit of intrigue. You know, WWE fans watch them every week. They're having some good tag team matches, but as baby faces, I just don't think it was working. So now that you're kind of teasing the heel turn, I think they both should turn heel. I think those new belts are sexy as hell. They should put those belts around their waist and let them go with that tag team division. Let them go. Let them have some big time matches, some big time feuds. And when the time is ready, don't just do it because Triple H, that's all he knows how to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I don't want these guys just having a one-on-one feud because for the sake of doing it. Let them get that tag team division going on SmackDown. And then a year or 2 from now, or 3 years from now, whatever, then you can do the whole thing with Ciampa and Gargano at WrestleMania, you know, unsanctioned match, Black and Gold style. But good pick for SmackDown. Honestly, I look at SmackDown's tag team division, and it kind of reminds me of like Ruthless Aggression era of SmackDown. I see the similarities. And it also helps the belts also are very reminiscent of that. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I think if they split up now, I think that's a huge mistake. I think that's a huge slap in the face to your tag team division. You shouldn't be splitting up tag teams because that's a really dumb idea when you just split up the belts. But yeah, put your money on Gargano and Ciampa for now.
It's their biggest problem now because it looks like they aided the women's division. SmackDown gets Blair Davenport, and Bronson Reed stays on Monday Night Raw, who I hope gets a little bit more of a push. I wouldn't say more of a push. I mean, he's kind of factored into the IC title, but it feels like he's just being used as like a stepping stool for everybody else when Bronson Reed really should be, you know, his own guy, and he should be getting some success come his way as well. I just feel like he's used as a secondary prop in the Intercontinental Championship title picture. So we'll see what happens there. But Blair Davenport, if you don't know anything about Blair Davenport, another one of those ladies that works hard. She knows how to wrestle. She's very good at what she does. She's a decent promo, and she can make a great foil for Bayley in that Women's World Championship. So I love that pick, and that was actually a surprising pick. I know you alluded to it earlier. When you saw the reactions of her and Lyra Valkyria get drafted to Raw, it was a genuine reaction because I don't think they were in the news. I don't think they were in the rumors, so they probably didn't even know they were going to get called up. And the reaction that you saw when they were at the Performance Center and they shot the Performance Center footage, I mean, it was great to see that reaction. So I'm glad that they actually aided in the women's division, and you couldn't ask for anything better than Blair Davenport.
Yeah, just overall beautiful reaction. Great way to film it. And, sometimes the best stuff is the stuff that feels real. And for Blair, like, dude, I know you don't watch NXT, JD, but let me tell you, man, they weren't giving her wins. She was kind of the vet putting people over. She just put over Sol Ruca. And I would always kind of question him, like, yo, like, do you even know what you have? So when I saw her get drafted, I was very, very happy about that. And Lyra Valkyria, fantastic with the NXT Championship. And again, it's all about shaking up the division, introducing new faces. They've done that. Now, follow-up is the most important.
Additional picks for Raw after last night's show. Dijak gets drafted to Raw. Right now, Dijak has not signed the new deal with WWE. He's kind of in limbo. That was reported by Fightful Select. I'll get to that in a second. But the rest of the draft picks here, New Catch Republic goes to Raw from SmackDown. It's Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. Odyssey Jones, I'm surprised he's even still with the roster. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. The Creeds and Ivy Nile. And then Natalya stays on Raw. I'm surprised Natalya didn't get drafted to NXT. She's another one of those veteran names that could probably benefit from a move to NXT. And then SmackDown, Apollo Crews stays on SmackDown. I think he was with SmackDown. So he gets the move to SmackDown. Giovanni Vinci gets moved from Raw to SmackDown. And Tegan Knox is on SmackDown. Now, the news with Dijak, apparently there was an update from Fightful Select on Dijak's status. Corey Brennan of Fightful Select has learned that sources in NXT, as of Tuesday morning, Dijak has yet to re-sign or be approached regarding a new deal despite being drafted to the main roster. However, both sides are confident that a deal will be reached, with Shawn Michaels and Triple H both being vocal supporters of Dijak, who was a former member of Retribution. In speaking with multiple departments, Fightful Select also learned that Dijak's social media antics have drawn praise from the majority in NXT. Corey Brennan also was told that as of Monday evening, there are yet to be creative plans put into place for Dijak on Raw, but creative has been actively pitching ideas for his call-up. As previously reported, Dijak was not aware he would be called up to Raw ahead of time. There was outside interest in Dijak, but sources within AEW tell Brennan that they expect Dijak to re-sign with WWE. First of all, the last thing Tony Khan needs is Dijak. Secondly, the fact that there's no creative planned for him after the initial call-up goes back to his contract. He hasn't signed yet. They want him locked in. They want him to make a commitment before they make a commitment to him creatively. It's basic here as far as the story is concerned. But Dijak moving up to the main roster angle, I know there's one thing that I don't watch NXT, but there's one thing I do know about NXT, and that's Dijak and how he has kind of come into his own. He was there in the black and gold era. He got called up with Retribution. Vince failed him. The gimmick was terrible, one of the worst of all time. He got moved down there. It was like a take on Big Boss Man meets fucking Rob Halford from Judas Priest. I don't know what the fuck they were doing with him. Very robotic promos. He's kind of made it into his own. He was a little bit more humanized, a little bit more organic, a little bit more natural, and he's become one of my favorite performers in the entire company. He's going to make a huge splash if they just let him go on the main roster, but it's all coming down to the contract situation. So I know you said that Dijak got called up via a social media post, and it put the level of importance kind of on the back burner for Dijak's call-up. But I mean, if they let him go, bro, they got to again. There's that word game changer. I mean, a lot of people don't know what Dijak's capable of, man. The guy's like 6'7", 6'8", moves around like a cruiserweight in there. You put him in the ring against Gunther, Drew McIntyre. You put him in the ring against Ricochet. I mean, we're about to get fucking Banger Central on Monday night.
Yeah. I mean, look, they haven't signed him. What the fuck are they waiting for? Because I could name a shit ton of feuds, JD.
I know.
Bronson Reed and Dijak will be fire. Ivar and Dijak will be fire. I mean, I could keep going. Look, WWE wants to be wrestling and they want to be sports entertainment. Now they could say wrestling again on TV. Give me some actual wrestling. Dijak could do both. He's killed it in NXT. I honestly was scratching my head for a very long time as to why he wasn't called up. And everybody's like, oh, well, he's got to win the NXT championship first. I'm like, bro, this guy is way better than all of that shit. He doesn't need to be there. He is going to kill it on the main roster. Sign him. Hurry it up. Don't be stupid. Do not utilize him as a veteran to put people over. Put him in that upper mid card and let him go. Let him go wrestle. Let him go do some really cool things. And at the end of the day, I think people will see when Dijak wrestles and he has a banger for 15 minutes on Raw against Ivar, against Drew McIntyre, against Bronson Reed, against Ilya Dragunov, and all these other people, right? You put him up there. I think just alone with his presence and his abilities, he will get over.
I think so too. I'm excited to see. Hopefully they lock him down because he is legit, no doubt about it. And like Angle said, the bangers that are going to be had on Monday night. I mean, I'd love to see all that happening in the mid card. Chad Gable, Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre. I mean, you name it. The guy's going to have fucking a field day with the amount of talent that's in that mid card on Monday night. Now there were a few fears from within WWE that NXT would be depleted. So I give the question to you, bro. Do you feel with all the main roster call-ups that we got, the way I look at it, I know who they are and what their value was to NXT. I don't think that these picks that we got on Monday and Friday were moves that would that would deplete Monday NXT rather with the moves to Monday and Friday. How do you feel about NXT now after seeing the moves that were made? And do you have the same sort of excitement for NXT now that they lost a good chunk of their talent?
Yeah, this is hard to answer because we still don't really know how the Triple H era handles call-ups. I use this example quite often, but when Vince McMahon back in the day called up Adam Rose, right? He was Leo Kruger, went from Leo Kruger to Adam Rose, a complete gimmick change that, you know, it just didn't work out on the main roster, became a comedy character. And that was kind of the thing with the Vince McMahon regime was NXT call-ups typically didn't translate well to the main roster. They would get over in NXT. Triple H knew what he was doing with them. Vince McMahon didn't know what he was doing. And that was just one example. Now, this is the real test for Triple H because there's multiple call-ups. So I want to see how Triple H handles these call-ups. Dijak and all of these individuals, you know, are they going to have the same character? Are they going to get, you know, new theme music that is complete garbage? Like, what kind of changes should I expect to these wrestlers? Because if the way that they're handled in NXT is the same for the main roster, I actually have more excitement for NXT because I know what I'm watching could very well not change when they go to the main roster. So for example, Lyra Valkyria had a really cool entrance in NXT. She had really cool presentation. If she brings that with her to Raw, I think she will do relatively well. If I see somebody in NXT, like right now, Tony D'Angelo, go from the Don, the family, to eventually getting called up and everything about him changes, I can't get excited about NXT. I can only get excited about NXT when I see that the things that are working there are now being translated well to when they get called up. When I see people go from NXT to the main roster and their gimmick has changed and their name has changed and all this bullshit that the Vince McMahon regime used to do, if that's what happens, I don't want to see people get called up from NXT because I like it the way it is. So there's a lot of good stuff happening down there, even with the roster changes. I'm okay with the call-ups, but I want to see that what's happening in NXT is not being discontinued the minute that they get drafted.
And that's a natural fear for everybody to have because Vince instilled that fear in everybody else. And the most glaring example of that is Karrion Kross. Remember what they did? They butchered Karrion Kross. And Angle mentions entrances. I mean, just look at what Malachi or Aleister Black did in NXT. None of that translated to the main roster. He used to come up from the casket on NXT in the aisleway. They got rid of that. Andrade, you know, they split him from Zelina Vega. That was the main event act on NXT, and they split them within months of him getting called up to the main roster. Karrion Kross, like I said, the most glaring example. They put a fucking mask on him, and they got rid of the entire entrance, the whole presentation, the camera angles that were present in his entrance on NXT, the smoke, the music, the fucking Titantron with the crow coming at you, and so the way Scarlett just kind of advances the camera. They took Scarlett and the entrance away from him. What the fuck good was he? Just proved Adam Cole and that promo 100% factually correct. I mean, that's just that. Those are just a couple of examples. But, I mean, a lot of that has to do with political. Vince McMahon didn't want anything to get over on NXT and then get called up to the main roster and have him be outstaged because he didn't come up with it. It wasn't his vision. It was his son-in-law's vision. So, I mean, a lot of that goes back to it being political. But, yes, you know, a lot of people didn't take NXT to be serious. And it goes back to your point. Why are we investing our time in NXT? Meanwhile, everybody loves the fucking show and what's being created down there. If it doesn't translate to the main roster, why am I going to waste my time watching this shit if everything's going to fucking change and it's not going to remain the same? So, yeah. I don't think that we have to worry about that with Triple H. And Triple H did say once upon a time that every NXT call-up would happen and there'd be a plan behind it. We're not going to recklessly call people up and then just have them wither away on the main roster. But then I look at Cameron Grimes. And it's like, you saved LA Knight. Why couldn't you save Cameron Grimes? It's like, what's the difference there? So, yeah, I mean, there is some hesitation and there is some doubt for sure on the main roster. And you make a great point for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And my last point, too, that I think is just so important is looking at NXT. I know some people look at it as a third brand. I know some people look at it as developmental. I look at it as a hybrid. And, you know, I just got to give them props. It's the one thing that I feel like it's relatively nice watching people on the come up. And they have a weird strategy. Some of these people are college athletes and some of these people are indie wrestlers and some of these people are gymnasts and they all have different backgrounds. So watching people kind of find themselves in NXT and actually watching them and enjoying them and saying, hey, like this person has potential. I want to know if I'm right or not. And so when you do the call-ups correctly, I can never hate on the idea of NXT because as more call-ups happen, now look what happens. There's new talent from the Performance Center getting the opportunity to be on TV. And we saw that with Javon Evans, right?
Yeah.
He had a freaking amazing match with Ilya Dragunov, like a great introduction. So now this opens up room for those guys, but I can never get excited about that product. I can literally never get excited or watch it with the same happiness if I see these call-ups flop. Yeah. So that's the big thing.
It's a major concern and a justifiable concern for sure. If you're a fan of NXT or WWE in general, to see what happens down there and not get the proper treatment on the main roster. So hopefully that does change with the new administration. And the new administration is very aware that things need to change. That is one aspect that needs to change. One aspect that needs to change is the fucking theme music and the way we treat theme music, because I think everybody with a functioning brain realizes and understands that if you don't have a catchy theme and a theme that properly represents you as a performer and an entertainer, then it's not going to work. I mean, it's half the fucking battle. They're very aware that Def Rebel is not very good. And maybe they think that Def Rebel is good, but the fans certainly don't think that Def Rebel is good. They're very aware of the fans' criticism of Def Rebel, the people that are behind the WWE theme music. Now, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, WWE is very aware of the criticism aimed at Def Rebel. WWE did shoot down the idea that Douglas J. Davis was still involved with Def Rebel, though. Davis made headlines this week after footage of him accusing an Uber driver of anti-Semitism went viral. After being asked if WWE were aware of the criticism directed at Def Rebel, Sapp says they're very aware of them. There was today the thing with Douglas J. Davis and the Uber driver. I reached out to WWE about him because he was originally a part of Def Rebel, and they were quick to say, no, he's not a part of them anymore and hasn't been for years. Never mind that. That's a completely different topic for a different day. It's been a problem for a while, bro. And I know you know the theme music is very important for the performers. I don't want to sit here and tell you Def Rebel hasn't made some very good theme songs. I mean, they're responsible for Romans, clearly. I mean, it's one of the best themes in the entire company. But the fans' criticism is justified. And I know there was a petition going around to get Jim Johnston back, and Jim Johnston's in his 70s, and who knows if he wants to do it anymore. The whole aura about CFO money going away and not working with WWE anymore. We never got a real reason as to why they're not working with WWE anymore. They made bangers. Everything that they churned out was a fucking banger. But what do you make of the criticism for Def Rebel, and how do you feel about the current environment in WWE where you don't know who the fuck's coming out because the theme music is so garbage?
Yeah. I mean, it's a criticism that everybody has, so I'm not saying anything new, but I do want to point out one thing. The music these days, I would say more often than not, they're booty. Just calling it like it is. I think, too, it has to go simultaneously hand in hand with the Titantron. Logan Paul's Titantron got changed, and it shows highlights of his matches, and it shows his logo. Then you got other people coming out, and it's just like some graphic with their name on it and their generic-ass music. People got to remember that entrances and, like, the character... Like, entrances are such a big part of people's character, right? So you look at the Bloodline, it's really cool. I think DIY's theme song, it gets heavily criticized, but that is definitely not the worst Def Rebel thing. But again, it's called consistency. And when some wrestlers have really, really good theme music and others have really shitty music, I think it actually puts these wrestlers at a disadvantage. So yeah, I think WWE is kind of dumb for even waiting to have this play out. I think the criticism that fans make, I think everybody kind of knows at this point in time it's problematic. And man, imagine back in the day with Stone Cold Steve Austin not having that glass break. Would Stone Cold be the same guy without that glass break?
No.
I think that's a very big part of his career. So, man, it's
I don't know what the answer is. License more music from actual musicians? I don't know. Or get somebody that actually knows what the fucking, character of the performer is. That's great about tapping into the performer, who they are. Randy Orton was approached by WWE last December before SmackDown taping, and there was a change to his song Voices. And at the time, it was a Def Rebel remix of the song. And Corey Brennan of Fightful Select said that within 10 minutes of Randy hearing this, he said basically, no, fuck no. I'm not going with this. And I wish a lot of the talent there actually had the pull that Randy Orton had to axe their theme music, because a lot of what we've heard on television and continue to hear on television should have been fucking axed a long time ago. But yes, I hope that's something that within the next year we really get some change to, because honestly, out of everything that we talked about as far as the weakness of WWE, the AEW, their strongest production, I would say positive, is the theme music. Mikey Ruckus does a phenomenal job. And if WWE had somebody like that, I don't think we'd be in this situation right now. WWE, the weakest point of their entire production is their music.
Yeah, I think we have to acknowledge Mikey Ruckus, because he shows people, honestly, he is very, very quick, but very methodical in the way he produces music. And maybe some people know this, JD, I don't know if you know this. I grew up making music since I was like 6 years old. Now, I'm not anything special. I like it. It's a hobby. It used to be something back in the day. Now I just love producing and having fun with it. It is not easy to make music, let alone make music for a wrestler and have it fit their theme and help with their aura and all of these different things. Mikey Ruckus has done something that was common back in the day with WWF music, which is the vocal stings.
Yep.
These are things that are in songs, like with the who was it? Britt Baker, the doctor will see you or whatever. Like these little things, it's Britt Baker. And then the theme song is built on that, like that little sting. So you know who it is every single time the music hits. And it's so funny because in WWE, there's really not that many wrestlers who have a theme song where I genuinely know it's theirs. Like that's a problem. And I watch this. I cover it for a living. And there's times where I watch the Royal Rumble and I'm like, oh my God, we got a surprise. Who is it? And then you're like, oh, wait, it's just.
No, and then it affects the entire show because the fans don't know. There's no reaction. Even the wrestlers are like, who the fuck is this coming out?
Yeah.
I don't know who this is. Like, I mean, Rhea Ripley's song is not a Def Rebel song. That's an actual band. Like, WWE actually reached out to that said band and had them write music for Rhea Ripley, for everybody singing Rhea Ripley's theme. I mean, that's just one instance where it's not Def Rebel. But yes, Mikey Ruckus taps into the performer. I mean, look at what he's done for Adam Cole. Look at what he's done for Bryan Danielson. Look at what he's done for everybody, really. I mean, when you hear an AEW theme, you know who's coming out. When Shayna Baszler comes out, I don't know if it's fucking Shayna Baszler or somebody else that's on the roster. Tegan Knox. I don't know. It's the same shit.
Yeah, Mikey Ruckus really changed the way that I perceive wrestling music because his workload is so quick. Like he's got so much on his plate and he does it for everybody essentially in AEW. And it's I don't remember, I don't think it was taped or like televised, but in WWE, Brooks Jensen and NXT worked a dark match. And at one point, WWE used like I forgot the name of the song.
It was Journey.
Yes.
I forgot what song they used, but
you know what I'm talking about.
Separate. Yeah. I don't know if it was Separate Ways or something along those. Yeah, but they tested it out. But I'm like, I didn't because I don't want to watch it, so I didn't know if that was actually his theme. But I'm like, holy shit, they should do more of that. Because when you hear that, not only do you think Journey, but man, that's Brooks Jensen. I get it.
It was cool. It kind of fit, like he came out with like the old school mustache and the the tights or whatever, the shorts and the trunks. And I remember when that happened, I was like, oh, they got to make this his like permanent theme song. They got to fix it, man. I don't think there's any excuses for WWE. They're rich as hell. They've got millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of consecutive sellouts and, merch this and Netflix deal and all this bullshit. Spend a little money. It helps with your talent. Invest in your talent. I think if I was a talent in the company I work for, really invested in my entrance theme, that's a company I want to run through brick walls for. If it really shows that if it shows that they're going to put the effort in to my character and my progression, that's a company I want to work for. When you give me generic YouTube non-copyright music from Def Rebel, I'm thinking, what's the vision? And they got to fix it. I'm sorry. It's like no excuses. There's no reason why they're this successful and they got all this money. They can't pay for better producers. I don't know.
They just changed Braun Breaker's music too. That was actually a pretty decent theme. I don't know what the fuck he's coming out to now. It sounds like some fucking B-side of Black Album Metallica with some generic riffs behind it. Like, I don't know what the fuck they did with Braun Breaker's music, but yes, it's a problem. And I'd like to know who's coming out and hear the music and think, all right, that's him or that's her.
Yeah.
So what they did fix is Drew McIntyre. Before we end this show here, which I am very appreciative of not only Angle spending his time with us, but you guys in the chat as well. McIntyre, new contract. PW Insider's reporting that the deal has been described as a multi-year big money deal. He's finally locked in, believed to be 3 years. It'll keep McIntyre with WWE until April of 2027. Now, we found out about this not from McIntyre himself, but from The Rock. So The Rock gave Drew McIntyre a very special gift. He shared a video on Instagram that was actually shot well before the deal between McIntyre and WWE was signed. So WWE basically had a feeling that it was going to get done anyway, and they made it happen. The actual discussion between the two sides wasn't concluded until a few days ago, but WWE wanted the video to be ready to publish as soon as the contract was signed. So he was out to dinner with his wife, and the waiter comes over and hands him a sword and a letter or a note from The Rock congratulating him on his new 3-year deal, and McIntyre staying with the company, which right now we have Glasgow and June 15th, Clash of the Castle in Scotland, which is going to be a big day for Drew McIntyre. I'm predicting that he probably regains the WWE World Heavyweight Championship there. But like everybody has uttered, Ango, the best work of his career has been done in the last 18 months or so for Drew McIntyre. From the babyface turn, or the babyface run rather, into the heel turn and slowly kind of leading into that to where we see him now feuding with CM Punk. This is the best run that he's ever been on. And if he left WWE, it would have been a massive mistake.
Yeah, his tweet says it all. I trusted Triple H when he brought me back in 2017, and I trust him now to lead the evolution of our industry years to the future. Well said.
There you go.
This guy under Triple H has been presented very well. This is the thing that I keep saying about WWE just being absolutely really good with the way they present their stars, which is so shocking considering that a lot of people's theme music sucks. But when it comes to the overall perception of their stars, they come across as a big deal on TV, the way they're booked. Drew McIntyre is not champion right now. Drew McIntyre is injured right now. And yet he has this segment with CM Punk on Raw and just absolute great stuff. So, man, it would have been catastrophic for WWE to lose Drew. And people are going to say, why is it catastrophic? But Endeavor has a history of not necessarily retaining talent in the UFC. It's a big concern. I follow that very closely. I follow TV deals. I follow contract signings and stuff. People are going to float between companies. But to lose out on a guy who is a primary player on your TV show every week, and you're teasing something down the line. If you're not re-signing him, that's a major problem. So the fact that they got the deal done tells me this entire time they kind of always knew what they were working towards. It sounds like he's getting paid good money. I hope so. And at the end of the day, for those who read so much into the criticisms of AEW, you just got to understand this is why it's important to have a healthy wrestling industry, because guys are getting paid. Guys have options. If AEW didn't exist, WWE would probably pay Drew McIntyre less. Yep. So the reality is this is best for industry. And the fact that he chose WWE is actually very helpful for the industry as well, because it shows people, hey, he's not willing to leave. He's happy there. If I was a free agent, I might call Drew and say, hey, what are some of the things that you like about WWE? And it goes back to what he said about Triple H. And again, it goes down to leadership, and you want to work for somebody who's a good leader. I could only go off of Drew's tweet. It sounds like he's pretty happy with Triple H as a leader. It sounds like he truly does trust him, and he's part of that vision. Get that money.
That's a good point. Who's to say he's even here if Vince is still in charge? We might not even be talking about this right now.
No, hell no, he wouldn't be. Because look at the way Vince utilized him.
It's crazy.
It's simple.
I can't. That feud is gonna fucking be the. It's gonna be Summer of Punk all over again. Part 3. Can't wait for it. It is going to feed villages, folks. I can't wait to see what Punk and McIntyre have in store. Looking at probably a SummerSlam co-main event for those two gentlemen in Cleveland. Guys, we are going to get into your super chats, and then we're going to call it a night. Thank you very much for hanging out with both of us here on this Tuesday night. A very, very, very newsworthy show. Follow us on social media. Go follow Ango on X. I'm on X as well. You guys see the ats right on the screen there in the layout. Go and follow us on social. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn the bell for notifications. Go follow Ango on YouTube as well. He is not difficult to find at all. I actually put his link and his handle in the description and in the title of the video. So all you got to do is click it. It'll take you right to his channel. And make sure you guys get those questions, comments, and concerns in. And we will wrap this up in a timely fashion. Gabriel with a super chat. JD, I don't mean to step on your toes, but a future heel, Liv Morgan, deserves to be champion until WrestleMania 41 and be dethroned by a babyface Rhea Ripley. Gabriel, it might not be that long. I think Liv will be the definition of a transitional champion, and Rhea will probably be back by SummerSlam. Rhea was going to hold that title until WrestleMania 41. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Liv is only there to keep the title warm. Michael Krause with a 2. Good day, JD and the OTS family. How is everyone? Michael, we are very well. Thank you, brother. Gabriel again. Rhea doesn't have to win the title right away. As a babyface, she will need to struggle with Liv in Judgment Day for months before Mania glory. Gabriel, I'm getting a sense you're a Liv Morgan fan. Trust me, we are as well. It's just, I don't know, you said something about Liv Morgan. You want to see Liv Morgan as champion? Angle?
Yeah, why not? I mean, just like Drew, the character evolution. Let it boil, let it simmer, let it cook.
Sue with the 10 months. JD, much success on the new TNT. Dialysis has me tired, so sorry I won't be with you live, but I'll catch you later. Have a drink on me. Sue, thank you very much for your 10-month membership. Tony Brown with 23 months. Been rolling with you for 2 years, young man. It's been awesome. You've been the IWC final boss. Well, thank you, Tony Brown. Tone C with 14 months. Drinking Blue Moon at the Tigers game. No more bumps for Tony on and off screen. Speaking of the Tigers, did the Braves win today? They're playing Seattle. No, they're losing 3-0. Thanks. How are the Tigers doing this year? Good?
I have no idea. I stopped paying attention, dude.
That's the sign of a bad team, I guess.
They're not doing too bad, but
Pittsburgh boy, $9.99, going through a very rough breakup of the relationship after 4 years has caused me to become very depressed, and I feel pretty empty. Hoping this stream can lift my spirits just a little. Pittsburgh boy, we've all been there, brother. One day you'll wake up and realize everything's going to be all right. Trust me. I've been there more times than I care to let you guys know about. Roper Mode with a $4.99. Hey, guys, love watching y'all and about to do pro wrestling in South Carolina. The Carolina Invincible Boy, KJ Roper, too heavy. Good luck with that, man. It's never easy getting into pro wrestling. I know I wouldn't do it. I love calling the action. I love telling the stories. Tommy Brannigan with a $5 super chat. Hi, JD Angle, celebrating my 40th birthday today. Tommy, happy birthday, brother. Travis, I've been looking forward to this stream. Two of the very best in the community, JD and Angle. Thank you, man. Appreciate that very much. Jedi Joker with 35 months. No message today, just showing some love. Jedi, thank you, brother, for being here. Theme parks and things with Johnny. They may give Will the championship at Wembley just as a FU to Triple H for the grind comment. Listen, man, if it makes sense, it makes sense. Let's stop booking because Triple H said something nasty about AEW. Stop. Drizzy Drew with the 499. TK just alluded on not being on the shows going forward in an interview, hinting at a new hire running the show physically as a GM. Can it be Scott D'Amore? Any merit to this? I don't know, Angle. You were a big Impact guy, weren't you? Or a TNA guy. What do you think of Scott D'Amore coming on into one of these bigger promotions and running some aspect of it?
I want him involved behind the scenes, 1,000%. I've had several conversations with that man. I've talked to that man several times in person at TNA events. He's the right guy. I see him going to NXT or AEW in some capacity at some point, being a part of the growth of the industry, because that was a big mistake for TNA.
Tony with a new membership. Thank you, Tony. Clone Force with a 499. TK is a principal of a school when a bully is picking on the student and the student keeps telling the principal to do something about it and he doesn't. That's a good way to look at it. Wrestleology with a 499. What a fucking duo. Shout out to my boy Angle. Love y'all both. Keep crushing it. Thank you, bro. Jedi Joker again. Punk lunges at TK and gets fired. The Bucks attack TK and are still employed. Make it make sense. Well, they definitely have to make it make sense tomorrow. Otherwise, there will be a lot of criticisms. Playboy Borby with a 499. Which NXT Black and Gold stars would have thrived in this new Triple H era had they stayed? All of them. Aleister Black, Adam Cole, Undisputed Era. I mean, just take your pick, really. I mean, it sucks that it didn't work out, but what are we going to do? We can't look back on the past. CRJ209 with a 499. If Disco Inferno was not the new co-host of TNT, we're going to riot. Looking forward to the new host and the new era of the show. Thank you, CRJ. I think you guys will be very pleased with tomorrow's announcement. Daniel C. with a 499. They need to have men's draft and women's draft because there's no way in hell situations like AJ Styles being picked after Nia Jax. Man, listen, man, I think Ango laid it out. I think the foundation of a draft should be exactly the way he documented. Will they do that? I don't know. They could make it work for sure if they try. Mr. Team Bring It with a 499. Angle, do you believe AEW still happens without one member being a part of the deal? Cody, Omega, the Bucks, or Jericho?
Cody and Tony Khan. I don't think the other guys were that big of a part of the formation. I think Cody and Tony Khan. Actually, just really quickly, Cody just said something with Peter Rosenberg, something about people taking shots at him, and he was like, hey, yes, don't bring up my name with Brandy, that type of thing. I think we're going to see a lot of revisionist history. I think people are going to definitely try to spread a different story of how AEW started. I can't wait to see it all come out. Why did Cody and Brandy really leave the company? The question we all want to know.
I don't think that it happens, honestly, without Cody's vision, for sure. I think ever since he left, things have kind of went downhill, and you can see that. Sue with a $5 super chat. If WWE do their draft like the NFL NBA, it would be more exciting to watch. JD, much success on the new era of the show. Glad to meet you, Ango. Have a drink on us. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate it. David, thank you, brother, for your unbelievable generosity. What's going on with my Blue Chew chewing motherfuckers? Pop them like M&Ms. Have a great show. Well, Blue Chew ain't sponsoring the show, David. That's tomorrow. Hollywood guy with a 5. Since they got Braun and Dijak, can you see them forming a new Wyatt family and also adding Alexa? Your thoughts? Absolutely. I think Braun would be a great addition to that. And Alexa, I do think that they're planning on having a return as a part of that group for sure. David, again, thank you, brother. Energy feels a little low tonight. Let's take some Blue Chew. Put socks in our shorts and dance around like HBK in 1997. No, thank you. There's no blue chew needed here. Theme parks and things with a $5 super. I heard Ricochet is the new Speed Champion, which is the championship on X, and it looks actually very nice. I think it's reached its peak already. I watched 1 week and didn't watch it again. Rosendale 72. Sorry, $9.99. More long-term storytelling. AEW desperately needs MJF back. He is the true superstar, not Ospreay. Ospreay's a superstar, but MJF is the ace, in my opinion. Devil Jinx with a 5. Love you, JD. Also, I think Khan was playing easy mode. Now that WWE's doing well, he has no idea what to do since Vince is out. Like I said, man, it's easy to be the alternative against Vince McMahon. Not so much with Triple H, because Triple H was the alternative to Vince McMahon, and now he is running the show like he was in NXT. So Tony's got a lot of work ahead of him. Phil, 29 months. Love the discussion tonight. TNT continues to evolve. I've been a fan of the show since day one. Ango, you're my guy. Plus, JD, much love to you. Stay safe. Thank you, Phil. Weston with a 199. Scott Demore, possible GM. Good work tonight. Thank you, Weston. I'm surprised you're still here. Billy with the 21 months. Great show, JD and Ango. From me, Billy Bomb. Have a great night. Thank you, Billy. Anthony with a 499. Great show, guys. For both of you, what is your favorite SummerSlam match? Mine is Brett vs. Owen Cage. Missed the blue style cage match. SummerSlam is one of my favorite events. If I had to pick a favorite SummerSlam match, probably Bret Hart versus The Undertaker, 1997, where Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee in New Jersey.
Yeah.
That really started the Attitude Era, honestly.
Yeah.
And Weston,
I was 3 years old.
3 years? Oh, shit.
Yeah, I know. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Making me feel old. 199. Weston, tell Triple H no more 2-minute matches. JD, you are great. Thank you, Weston. I appreciate you guys very much. And that is the end of the line. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Bro, I'll leave it to you to sign us off. Where can everyone find you, and what the hell are you going to be doing for Backlash?
Yeah. I talk about pro wrestling every single day, multiple times a day. Tons of opinions, news, rumors, reviews, all that good stuff. At Ango on YouTube, at AngoPW on X. Backlash is this weekend. Probably some live streams. I don't know. JD, this was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you having me. Last time we talked, we didn't agree and didn't disagree, the entire time. We had different opinions. And I just appreciate having that conversation tonight. And, we got to do this more often.
Yeah, man.
But we'll see what happens.
Maybe another roundtable. We got to get BC. Jesse, I hear you, bro. Jesus, you're like a fucking beggar on the street in New York, man. I get it. I'll plug you. Go to Jesse's channel. He's live doing something. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. Go over there and hang out with him. Ango and I are getting out of here. Thank you guys very much for all your support. Tomorrow, the announcement of the new permanent co-host on Tuesday Night Titans, man. You guys are going to dig it. I think you will love the announcement tomorrow. Go check out Ango, and make sure you guys follow us on social media. I will be live again tomorrow night with Jesse for the AEW Dynamite post. And please go check out Jesse's YouTube channel. He's doing something over there in his fictional bar in Chicago. I'll see you guys tomorrow with Jesse live on the Dynamite post right here on Off This Road.